welcome to the Foxhole, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going to be able to hear you quite yet. Phoenix. Figure out where the damn source is. There it is. Very bottom.
What about you guys, Chad? Can you guys hear me?
There you go. They should be able to hear you now. How we doing, everybody? How we doing? Good to see you once again. I was so close. I think I was like 2 minutes late, which is like man. Cool. You all can hear him. Good. The speed at which I'm actually impressed with myself on how fast I was able to log out of everything and then log back in and get everything set up for my normal situation in like 25 minutes. I'm proud of myself, chat. I don't care. Like, as someone who's like not really good at this stuff, the speed of it, and I had completely forgot to schedule the stream in the first place. I was setting them all up to raid. I couldn't raid because I don't have access to Genie's back end on YouTube. I just have restream access, so I couldn't like set up a self raid, but I could post a link in the chat, right? And that's when I realized, oh my god, I haven't scheduled the show stream yet. So I had to like make the thumbnail and get the title figured out and get the stream all scheduled up, and then I had to do all the logistics of logging out of everything, logging back in, getting everything set up on my end, getting the Fuki situation set up for Phoenix, and all in all, I ended up only 2 minutes late. That is, I'm impressed with myself. I know that I was late, and you don't care, chat, but anyway, yeah. So with me is a special guest. You may not know who he is, but I guarantee you that you have seen his work if you watch my shorts, because my special guest co-host tonight is my editor, Phoenix United. Yeah, Phoenix.
Hi, Chad. Pleasure to finally make your guys' acquaintance.
There you go. Very, very prim and proper of you to say that. Stop earning.
Try to keep it
points.
professional.
Stop earning boomer points. No, yeah. We'll move on from that. Didn't have access to her back end. Oh, I get it now. Yeah, I kind of walked into that one, didn't I, Jeff? Oh man, I need to get some water. Jeez. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, we got there's a lot of news, a lot of big global news going on. So we're gonna get into that in a little bit. But before that, as is tradition, we're gonna talk about how we've been doing this week. So, how you been doing, Phoenix?
Ooh, just working on your projects that you have me do on the back end, man. Just concentrating on that. You've got me working away from shorts and more onto a compilation. Not sure if anybody who's been paying attention to the last short caught that little editor's note at the very end, but yeah, we decided to ease off on the shorts a little bit and actually do longer end videos to see if that will actually help out the algorithm a little bit. And we'll just see how things are going from there. Other than working on that stuff, just more official work with the company, and then just off and on personal stuff going on, but nothing too much.
There you go. Yeah, Phoenix isn't like he's not like a front-facing content creator, but he works his ass off. And he has been making my shorts for me. And but yeah, we basically realized that, and I talked about this on the last stream too, how shorts have to basically, doesn't matter that YouTube allows shorts to be up to 3 minutes long. The fact is that YouTube has trained people who are on YouTube and viewers to expect less than a minute. So these longer, like part 1, part 2, part 3, that are each like 2 to 3 minutes long, those are basically being moved into compilation videos that will get released, like, I don't know, as basically ad hoc, pretty much. I think because there's no knowledge as to like I don't think that a regular release schedule can be followed, because it just depends on what kind of content is available to do it with, you know. So it's basically like it's going to be released ad hoc, and then the shorts are going to be just that. They're going to be shorts. They're going to be kept to 40 to 55 seconds, just like the wheelhouse. And I think that we figured out a good system to do that. There's a few clips that I think are on your docket, right, that are like testing out that workflow that we came up with.
Yeah, they're on the list of things to do. First, gonna finish up that compilation for the Yakuza, so we can just knock those last few out, and then after that, it's back onto some of the shorter clips. Then once that's completely taken care of, then it's just concentrating on trying to keep shorts that are under 30 seconds, preferably 10, 15-second range.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why like there hasn't been as many shorts released yet, because we basically have to like, you know, find like a good place to like do this transition of content production. And so like after the compilation that he's working on is done, then he's going to shift over to the actual like shorter shorts. And honestly, I think timing wise it'll be good, because he'll be able to make a bunch of shorts before I leave for Japan in a couple weeks. So a lot of them he's going to basically give to me, and then I'm going to basically schedule them to trickle out while I'm gone. More stuff like the 10 out of 10 horse parking from RDR2 for shorts. Yeah, exactly. That's basically what it is, because that short was like 30 something odd seconds long, which is honestly like the minimum length. Like ideally they're a little bit longer than that, but they also are going to be edited. We have a workflow so that we're gonna increase the quality of them, because that was just an unedited clip that I just pulled out of Twitch and stuck on YouTube, you know. But I don't want to spam unedited clips. I want the clips to be of quality, and so that's where Phoenix comes in. So we have like a workflow figured out for like shorts to be actually short, you know, and anything longer will be, well, actual videos. I think that's going to be a good plan going forward, along with the other interesting stuff that I have planned for after I get back from Japan. So let me see. Asma got a huge uptick with even with the 20-minute cuts. Dude, Asma has like popped off like massively in the recent months. Like every one of his videos gets like it's normal for like one of his clips from his daily show to get like 1 million+ views. And it's not like a trick, it's not like a what do you call it, like an evergreen kind of thing. It's like it reaches 1 million views in like less than a week. And that's like normal now on his channel. Like he gets massive viewership right now. You only see shorts because of notifications. I don't go out of my way to view them on YouTube. Yeah, that's what YouTube does. The way that YouTube works with shorts is it essentially every time you post a short, it takes that short and it kind of tries to figure out. It looks at your category, your titles, and that kind of stuff, and then it basically targets a certain audience across YouTube. That's not even necessarily the people who are your subscribers, and it'll just put that short into people's shorts feed, and basically after a certain amount of time, if it hasn't reached a certain amount of engagement, then it'll just stop putting it in people's feed. But if it does reach a certain threshold by a certain time frame, then it'll just basically say, okay, we're just gonna this short is just gonna get continually put into people's feeds for like a while, essentially. What that time frame is, I don't know. But ideally it's like 1 or 2 days. That's what it does. So that's the way that shorts work. So our goal is to get our shorts to resonate and reach that threshold of engagement, so that YouTube doesn't just squander it after a certain amount of time, which is what's been going on. That's what's been going on with the all the Yakuza ones, because as funny as they are, they're too long, and it's really confusing when you're fed a random part. You know, when you look at if you look at a shorts, if you're in your shorts feed and you come across a short that's like almost 3 minutes long and it says part 5, you're not going to watch it because you don't have you probably haven't watched parts 1 through 4, and if they're all 3 minutes long, that means that you have to watch 15 minutes of content just to watch a short, and you're just not going to watch it. So that's why the shorts is a horrible format for what the whole part 1, part 2, part 3 that we've been doing. It's like the worst format imaginable. But lessons learned, and we'll improve, and get the channel back on track. So let's see. Okay, what have I been doing? I guess been streaming, man. That's pretty much all I've really been doing, I think. I just got done with Death of the Reprobate over on Genie's channel because I figured out the restream login issue. And I kind of had an idea of what to expect, but not entirely. And oh boy, is that game a surreal mindfuck.
Really, how was it?
Oh my gosh, it is like because basically what the game is he basically took the creator took like a few dozen of like like those really weird Baroque era paintings, like medieval Baroque paintings of like a woman,
like frescoes or oil paintings.
No, like oh man, here I'll send you a link to it. Let's see here. Yeah, here I'll give you this. Save that, and then let me just drop it in DMs with you real quick, so that you could get an idea of what the art style is, because it is so strange, dude. It is so strange. But what it is, it's like medieval Baroque era art. So what I just sent you is a picture, a screenshot from like the gallery, and the gallery contains all of the artwork that the game is based on. And it's all real art. So they just took like real art and turned it into this goofy ass, crazy, surreal game. And it's art all from like that like Renaissance Baroque era where like people were just painting just like weird stuff. Like there's a painting of 2 monkeys playing Baccarat. There's a naked guy who's been shot by a bunch of arrows pinned to a tree. And then I guess another dude just kind of standing there, like staring at you. It's just a bunch of really bizarre art that was painted back in the day, like this Baroque art. And so the game creator just took all this artwork, sliced it all up, and then created this goofy little game based entirely off of the art. And it's hilarious and weird and just one of the most mind-fucky kind of things you've ever seen, I swear.
Nice to have an actual like storyline behind it, or was just a bunch of random stuff.
Oh no, there's a story. The whole story. I mean, it's thin. The story is you're like a nobleman, and your nobleman king dad is dying, and his last wish is for you to do, because you're like an awful human being, and so his last dying wish is for you to do 7 good deeds in one day. And so that's what you have to do. You have to go into town, talk to people, find people to help, and do whatever you need to do to help them, do the good deed, then report back to your old dad before he dies. That's the plot. And yeah, it's just weird, man. It's just a weird, silly game, and I'm really glad I played it. It was funny as hell. It was very memorable, if anything.
Nice.
So yeah, I did that. Play more Subnautica and the usual stuff, Yakuza and Red Dead Redemption, and yeah.
Yes, and round of applause on your last Subnautica episode, man.
Oh gosh, dude, I managed to not get eaten by the Reaper because I was so like overly cautious with it. Like I was like keeping track of like every inch that I was moving in regard to that thing. And the first time I went into the ship, though, I got kind of like stuck. I didn't know like where I was supposed to go in the wreckage, and I panicked and I paused and I reloaded. But But yeah, basically I spent the whole stream like getting past the Reaper and exploring like the big ship, the Aurora, repairing its nuclear core and all that kind of stuff. And that was like the whole stream because that ship is huge. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Lazy Viking said it reminded me of mid-90s adventure / puzzle games. Yeah, it's very much like it's done in a very like point and click Monkey Island gameplay. The Death of the Reprobate. Very much a throwback to that kind of a game, yeah. Things like King's Quest and Monkey Island makes you slam your head against the desk trying to find the logic. Yeah, it's just the randomness of like what you have to do to solve a puzzle is so random in so many of these games. You see them a lot in like there's like a whole slew of seek and find games that are in existence, and they have similar like ridiculous, like in order to like get through this door, you have to like go kill this thing to get the spear that will free the imprisoned talking mice that will cast a spell on the lock and unlock the door. You know, it's just like, it's just complete nonsense.
You know what that reminds me of? Have you ever seen Ender's Game?
Yeah.
That reminds me of the game that Ender was playing when he was the mouse and he's trying to figure out how to get past the giant, and he kept on dying over and over again, trying to figure out which cup was made out of poison, until he finally just got frustrated and just started attacking the giant's eye, and he finally got past that part of the level.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, that's just the way it is. But yeah, it's a fun game. But yeah, made it past the Reaper and Subnautica, and again, like Subnautica, like it had a few like scares like in the first episode when I got like spooked by the stalkers. But you have to remember that I had played this in the past up to a certain point. And the Reapers is like the only Leviathan class thing that I've had to deal with in the past. So even though I'm like terrified of them, I was still familiar with them to some level. Like I knew where they were. Like I knew that there was a Reapers in front and behind the ship, and I knew that they were like on the outskirts, you know, way to the west of the map, etc., etc. But everything else beyond that, I don't know. So, yeah.
It's gonna get pretty creepy from here on out. It's not gonna be terrifying. It's just gonna be completely creepy.
Well, they're kind of like the same to me at this point.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, and then like Red Dead Redemption, I had probably like, I can't remember the last time I got that mad on stream. It wasn't. I'm not talking about yesterday. I'm talking about the week before. Yesterday I made up for it, and we ended up going to like Cuba and fighting an ironclad ship with a cannon. I don't remember any of this shit in that game. So we ended up doing that. But the week before was the infamous $16 rant that I went on that caused me to go on like basically a murder spree across Saint Denis. Yeah, and I'm telling you, when you watch that as an editor, you're gonna find plenty of gold in that.
That angry, huh?
Oh man. When the first time I get that safe open and all the money in there adds up to like $16 and change, I lose it. I absolutely lose it. And I remain losing it for like the next 20 minutes until I end the stream. It is bad, but also great.
Don't you automatically get like a $30 or $50 bounty just for breaking into a bank?
No, it wasn't a bank. That's the thing. The robbery. Okay, so it wasn't a bank that I was breaking into. No, it's just something. It was like it was just like a secret poker game. Above the gunsmith. And yeah, I spent so much time because I kept on botching the robbery. And I was getting more and more frustrated, and it took me like an hour to finally like pull off this robbery relatively okay, and actually got the safe open. And after all that time,
Mm.
the contents of the safe contained a whopping $16. And I was just like livid. I was livid on stream. I was like, it was so anger inducing.
Okay. Yeah, just
And
all right. Yeah, so it's all that time wasted. You could have made $60 doing like a
I was,
single side mission that not even related to what the main
oh yeah, like,
storyline is.
yeah, exactly. It basically paid most of the bounty for killing the one cop I killed on the way out on yesterday's playthrough.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's the whole thing was a shit show. But it's a very memorable shit show. So, but yeah, other than that, I've started packing for my Japan trip because I got a lot to do. It's a long ass trip, and I have to get like a SIM card for the phone, and I have to get some yen, cash yen ordered from the bank, all this other kind of stuff, and it's just a lot. It's a lot of planning. So I've started like packing essentially. Like I made a list, or I'm making a list of like things that I have to pack because it's not like the normal stuff. It's the normal stuff and a bunch of other stuff. So
Yeah, it's definitely smart getting the money beforehand, man. I'm horrible when it comes to that. I always get my money when after I already enter the country, which has put me in some awkward positions a couple of times.
yeah, well, I mean, you basically just go to the bank and you say like, I want to exchange. You know, basically you want like 1,000, or for in case of the yen, you want like 100,000 yen, which is $1,000 essentially. Or you want 100,000 yen, and then you can say, okay, it's gonna cost this much, plus like $7 for processing, essentially, and like actually ordering the cash.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like,
it's also cheaper. Yeah, it's also cheaper to do it at the bank too, because if you have like the times I've completely forgot to do it, I've had to use the exchange systems at the airport, and their rates for the fees and everything like that are, I think, like 2 or 3 times higher sometimes.
oh yeah, it's way higher. It's best to just go to the bank. Like my parents already did their exchange, and they said that like, yeah, it was like $800, and like $7 of which was like for processing, like not even 1%. For 100,000 yen. So
Not bad, not
per se
bad.
change at source. Well, I don't know. I want to have the cash already on hand going in. I don't want to have to deal with. I don't want to go to banks and exchange places in Japan. I don't want to have to do that. Japanese are not into using cards. Well, it depends on where you are. If you're in Tokyo, cards will get you by just about everywhere. The moment you're outside of Tokyo, or like Osaka or Kyoto, or any of like the big major cities, then it's like, yes, a lot of places will actually take cash only. Especially restaurants. Like if you're just kind of in the middle of downtown in Kanazawa or something like that, and you go into a restaurant, it's a good chance that they're cash only. So yeah, you do want to have cash going to Japan for sure. So yeah, I'm just prepping. A lot of prep to do.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and jump into the news. Let me get it set up real quick, because this is like a train wreck of a setup. So up. That, then make sure I can hear any videos that get played. Then let me share it with you so you can follow along with me on the Discord side. Go. All right. I think we're all set up. And bring a bat? What? Bring a bat? I don't get it. This will get Johnny Somali'd? Oh, that won't be a problem. I mean, you have to remember that I do speak a little bit, just a little bit of Japanese. Like, I could get around, like, a restaurant or a train station just fine when I'm in Japan. And that's the thing, like, the Japanese, like, the level of respect that they have for you grows immensely the moment they realize that you can speak more, like, just any more than, like, arigato, essentially. If you could say anything other than konnichiwa and arigato, then their, like, level of respect for you, like, goes up drastically. So, oh, to hit kick streamers. Yeah, to fend off the nuisance streamers that are, like, plaguing Japan. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Alright, yeah, the stream is up on, the screen share is up on my end. Let me see if I can have that up while I open my notes too.
You can be fun and engaging without pissing off the nation. We'll see. I know it won't be a problem pissing native Japanese people off. I mean, the thing is that it's like any other country. You know what I mean? It's just follow the when in Rome principle and you'll be fine. It's pretty much how it is in every country. So
yeah, as long as you're not a country that isn't already xenophobic towards Americans, then you will be absolutely fine.
Well, that's the other thing is, though, it's that, like, it's easy to get mistaken for European as well if you're white. You don't necessarily know that you're an American right out of the gate, but, you know. It is what it is. Okay. Take some more water. Oh, because we got some heavy shit to get into. All right.
Yeah, we do.
All right, let's see here. Let's start with the big news. The big news is updates with Ukraine. It's actually kind of amazing how long I was able to avoid talking about Ukraine, because during like the Biden era of the war, I mean, it was pretty much just like this. You know, there never seemed to be any like real progress with it. You know what I mean? It just seemed to be like a consistent stalemate, and we were just sending money over there. There wasn't really any news about it. That was like, you know, except that, like, yeah, your tax dollars are funding a meat grinder on the other side of the world. You know, that's it. It's like, well, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
But now,
biggest.
Yeah, now that Trump's gotten involved as the president, things are actually happening that are like actually worth talking about. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about it right now, which is the most recent part of the conflict is the ceasefire, or the potential ceasefire, I should call it. It's really fragile, let's say. This is a very fragile ceasefire. So this all started back on the 11th. When it broke in the news that the U.S. and Ukraine had agreed to a ceasefire. Basically they had drafted up and made a ceasefire agreement that Ukraine would sign onto if Russia signed onto it. And I think pretty much everybody right out of the gate, without even having to see the ceasefire agreement, was like, "There's no way Russia's going to agree to that." Because everybody in deep down knows, even the most pro-Ukrainian, insufferable global homo leftist, knows deep down that Russia's winning this war, and they don't really have a huge incentive to just stop and allow their current adversaries to restock, reorganize, and and re-bolster their forces, essentially. Like, why would Russia do that? You know what I mean? Um, so, but let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the initial ceasefire that Ukraine and the U.S. Reached. So Ukraine has agreed to an immediate 30-day ceasefire negotiated by the U.S. if Russia accepts the plan. Ukraine is ready to start talking and stop shooting, said Marco Rubio. I was gonna say, it's like Ukraine already won. What? As part of the plan, the U.S. immediately lifted its pause on sharing intelligence with Ukraine and will resume security assistance to that country. Which is interesting because if you remember, like right after the whole fallout at the Oval Office over the minerals deal, Trump basically halted intelligence and logistics sharing, and I think that Elon actually said that he would that he was thinking about stopping Starlink from being used over there as well, but that didn't happen. They still had Starlink. But the intelligence sharing was shut off. But it makes sense to me, though, at least, that they would, turn it back on, I guess, because they're, Ukraine and Zelensky is essentially signaling that, yeah, peace is the goal here, and we do want to stop shooting each other, and that's what Trump wants to hear. Trump doesn't want the drums of war beating, essentially. So he's like, okay, you want peace, so, we'll turn the spigot back on. But you have to be serious about it. So,
And not to mention, turning off a civilian service like Starlink would just be adding more friction. I mean, does Starlink have any sort of higher level security that the military can actually use, or would that only be affecting their civilian population who's just trying to get through their day?
That's a really good question. I don't know a whole lot about Starlink, honestly. I don't know what the different like security levels are and that kind of stuff, or I don't know.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's only been authorized for civilian use. I've yet to hear of any government agencies using Starlink as their form of internet.
Yeah, I haven't either, to be honest. And it really begs the question of like, cybersecurity.
Yeah.
But okay, so Ukraine agreed Tuesday to an immediate 30-day ceasefire negotiated by the U.S. if Russia accepts the plan. As part of the plan, the U.S. immediately lifted its pause on sharing intelligence with Ukraine and will resume security assistance to that country, which was invaded by Russia more than 3 years ago. Ukraine is ready to start talking and stop shooting, said Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, after more than 7 hours of negotiations in that city between high-level American and Ukrainian delegations. Both U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky agreed to conclude, quote, as soon as possible, a comprehensive agreement for developing Ukraine's critical mineral resources. So, and this was expressed by Ukraine, or by Zelensky, like, after that Oval Office fallout, too, how he still wants to sign the minerals deal, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was blown out of proportion. I was like, oh, the minerals deal just got killed and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, no, he just didn't sign it right now, like, as planned. It's still very much on the table. And I think Zelensky is, like, coming to I think he's starting to realize that, yeah, Europe is, like, pumping their chest right now about, like, rearming and defending and all that kind of stuff. But I also think that he's realizing that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. He isn't going to have any kind of a land trade option because the Russians took back the Kursk region pretty much. So there's no like land trading available from his side. Basically, his power to negotiate is like next to nothing, and he absolutely has to have the United States cooperating to accomplish the goal of peace, and I think he's kind of coming to terms with that, and that's why he's like, let's sign the minerals deal. That's clearly the thing that you guys want to help us. So let's do it. Let's see. Zelensky in a statement said that the planned ceasefire would halt all hostilities, not just for missiles, drones, and bombs, not just in the Black Sea, but along the entire front line. Ukraine welcomes this proposal. We see it as a positive step, and we are ready to take it, Zelensky said. The United States must now persuade Russia to do the same. If Russia agrees, silence will take effect immediately. Yeah, but everybody knew that there's no way that Putin was just going to sign on to an agreement that he had no part of drafting. Like, give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Putin knows that he holds the cards here, that he has the upper hand. There's no damn way that he's going to basically cripple himself with a 30-day ceasefire. Rubio said that today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable and accounts for their interests, their security, their ability to prosper as a nation. And hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. We hope that they'll say yes, to peace. Ball is now in their court, which has become an annoying fucking phrase because there's like a bunch of politicians and stuff that were talking about the ceasefire deal, and they all use the same turn of phrase. The ball is now in their court. Like it looked like all these politicians had the same social media manager who was just copying and pasting their responses over and over again for all these different politicians. It was gross.
Yeah, normally I'd give them the benefit of the doubt because that's a pretty common phrase, especially when you're talking at like that level of bureaucracy. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that phrase in government meetings that I've been a part of, where that's been used almost every other sense. But after that last like series of like videos that everybody posted to social media, where it was a copy and paste of body language, holding the microphone, and the whole like
that Democrat stunt.
I fully agree with you that this is probably a cut and paste too.
Well, there's now 3 instances of like the copy paste, call it political response. There's the thing you just said, which was like that super cringe compilation video of all like the senators and stuff, all the Democrat senators. There's the other one, which was all of the European politicians who had the same copy paste response after the Oval Office fallout. Because like right after that happened, Zelensky got onto Twitter and started like quote tweeting a bunch of European bureaucrats, just saying like, thank you for your support, essentially. And when you read all these different posts from all these different bureaucrats, all of the bureaucrats' posts were like literally the exact same posts, all of them. So it was like clearly like a copy paste. Like they just basically said, hey, social media team, handle it. And that's what they did, essentially. And then Zelensky just went in and just like replied to each of them with a pithy little thank you for your support message. And then the third one is this one that I'm talking about now, which is like the ball is in Russia's court. It's like, man, like you all like it's really gross to me how like the like it's almost like a hive mind that these people operate under. It's gross. Let's see.
Yeah, it shows that they ultimately don't care because they're not willing to put any personal voice into it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can essentially say the exact same thing, but if you put your own voice into it, there's going to be enough of a change to show that you at least care enough to put your own to at least say something original.
Or just like avoid, cliches. Like, but anyway, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, true.
So Zelensky, in his nightly televised address to Ukraine, said, "Our position is absolutely clear. Ukraine has sought peace from the very first second of this war." I don't believe that for a second. And we want to do everything to achieve peace as quickly and reliably as possible so that war returns. According to the joint statement issued by Ukraine and the U.S., the two delegations also discussed the importance of humanitarian relief efforts as part of the peace process, particularly during the above-mentioned ceasefire, including the exchange of prisoners of war, the release of civilian ease, and the return of forcibly transferred Ukrainian children. So Ukraine was quick to jump onto this agreement because Ukraine obviously is the entity that stands to gain from a ceasefire, because they're losing. They know they're losing. Well, I'm getting some feedback on your end.
All right,
right
what
there?
about now? Yeah, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just
Alright,
getting
cool.
some static in the background for you. Okay, so this happened, and then Putin was like, What? The Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday, so this is 2 days later, said Russia agrees in principle with the U.S.-led ceasefire plan backed by Ukraine earlier this week, but stopped short of signing up to any deal, arguing that it needed further negotiation and must lead to enduring peace. We are in favor of it, but there are nuances, Putin said when asked about the 30-day ceasefire deal brokered by the White House. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday said Russia agrees in principle with the ceasefire plan, but stopped short of signing up to any deal, arguing that it needed further negotiation and must lead to enduring peace. The idea of a ceasefire itself is correct, and we are certainly supporting it, but there are issues that need to be discussed. I think that we need to talk to our American colleagues and partners, maybe call President Trump and discuss it together, but we support the very idea of ending this conflict through peaceful means instead. Putin also said a deal must proceed from the fact that this cessation should be such that it would lead to long-term peace and eliminate the root causes of this crisis. We are in favor of it, but there are nuances, he said when asked about the ceasefire. Kiev backed the plan on Tuesday, contingent on Moscow's agreement. Putin also questioned whether the 30 days would be used to supply weapons or train newly mobilized units, and how potential violations of a ceasefire would be monitored. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, Putin knows that he has the upper hand here, and by signing onto a ceasefire, that he's allowing his enemies to recoup, essentially. It's like a bad military, from a purely militaristic standpoint. It's a bad thing because for whoever is basically winning and has the momentum to sign on to a ceasefire. Speaking during a press briefing with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Donald Trump said Thursday, "We're getting word that things are going okay in Russia. That doesn't mean anything until we hear what the final outcome is. Hopefully they all want to end this nightmare," he said. Yeah, so the U.S. delegation is led by this guy named Steve Witkoff, who arrived in Moscow for the ceasefire talks on Thursday. Earlier indications from Russian officials appeared to indicate that the country would not immediately sign up to the U.S.-led deal. Yuri Ushakov, a Russian presidential aide, did not confirm or deny, but noted that a truce would give Ukraine a chance to boost its forces, calling the plan a temporary respite from the Ukrainian military, nothing more. Yeah. And the thing is, I don't blame them at all for thinking that, because in many ways it's true. The draft deal would see all Russian and Ukrainian military activity cease, potentially beyond the 30-day term by mutual agreement. It also requires the exchange of prisoners of war, the release of civilian detainees, and the return of forcibly transferred Ukrainian children to Russia. We already got over that. Analysts say that while Russia has incurred heavy losses on the battlefield, it is now advancing slowly but steadily in Ukraine, which has also been thrown into jeopardy by its souring relationship with the U.S., which is why they came crawling back for that minerals deal. Putin also said Thursday that if the U.S. and Russia struck an energy sector cooperation agreement, that Russia could provide a gas pipeline for Europe, benefiting the continent with cheaper energy prices, according to Reuters reporting. European natural gas futures dated to April were 3.5% lower following his comments. That's interesting. It's interesting how Putin has also basically, like the United States, basically put like an energy and materials deal forward as part of enforcement of a ceasefire. It's like Russia knows that they have natural resources that Europe wants, because so many countries like Germany and stuff went all in on like the 2030 WEF bullshit, and like crippled their own energy industry as a result. And now they're like piping in fucking millions and millions and millions of cubic meters of natural gas from Russia at like a premium price, because they just shot themselves in the foot with the 2030 agenda because they're retards. So it's like Russia knows that they have resources. They know they have the military power in this, and the United States does. And it looks like Zelensky is like starting to like realize that too, which is why he's like, "Hey, United States, I'll give you whatever you want, so long as you like get Russia to stop." I feel like that's what Zelensky is, where he's at right now.
Yeah, especially since they're getting low on manpower. They definitely can't be doing this on their own anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And then March 13th, this was 2 days ago, so this was also on Thursday. This is essentially saying the same thing, though. Putin pushes back on Trump proposed ceasefire. And he demands that the U.S. stop arming Ukraine ahead of Witkoff meeting in Moscow. Which, honestly, it makes sense, because I think that what Putin wants is essentially he wants the NATO to return to the way it was before, really like all the way just like before Crimea. Is it like, if you know the history of Crimea and eastern and southern Ukraine and the whole 2014 revolt and how like the Russophiles in like the eastern part of the country were like, after the 2014 revolt, the new government Ukraine was basically like heavily prejudiced against the Russophiles in the east. You know, they even like to the point where they the Russophiles in the eastern part of the country speak Russian. That's their language. And the government of Ukraine after 2014 literally banned usage of the Russian language in the country. So like there was this almost like a civil war kind of happening inside of Ukraine, like a cold civil war that was happening. And Russia basically has been coming in and basically said that, like, well, these are our people. so we're taking back our people, essentially. That's like a horrifically oversimplified, normie perspective of the war. It's just Putin definitely has all the cards here. So on the war,
I've heard some. I've heard some even more complicated stories about where that entire region, after the USSR fell, it was legally supposed to go to Russia, but because of some sort of technicality or Russia being too weak to care, when Ukraine made its move to take over that area and assimilate into their country, Russia didn't retaliate. So that's why they held onto it up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a really complicated situation, both from a cultural, historical, and even a legal standpoint.
Reminder that the only reason that most of eastern Ukraine is Russian is the Holodomor. Yeah, you're right. That is true. Let's see. Kremlin sends the list of demands I think it means to end Ukraine war, as Europe warns Putin is just playing for time. So basically, Putin countered. Is what happened. On Thursday, Putin rejected the U.S.-Ukraine ceasefire proposal. We agree with the principle, but we have to deal with the underlying cause. Because, like, one of the key points that Vladimir has put forth is the denazification of Ukraine. Let's see. And he's like, you have to deal with that. In previous peace talk, Russia has called on Ukraine to give up its NATO ambitions and accept a permanent status as a nuclear-free nation. Yeah, basically, Russia doesn't want to be sharing a border with NATO. And that's been a condition for a long time. Which is like, Ukraine can't join NATO. Which is another thing that Putin has required to agree to a ceasefire. He says, like, Ukraine can't join NATO, and there can't be NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine. Those are two of the things he said.
Which, from his perspective, is completely reasonable. I mean, look how jumpy we got when missiles were put inside of Cuba.
Yeah, exactly.
And the more you want, as much of a bulwark as possible. That's completely reasonable for him as the leader of his country to make that a condition.
Yeah. I mean, which is basically the condition from before the war happened, you know. The Kremlin has also demanded a veto on other nations' commitment to assist Ukraine in the event of all-out war in the region. What he's basically saying is that I'm not going to agree to a ceasefire in a war that I'm winning unless I can get a guarantee that NATO will stop involving itself in this matter. Which Europe is, they are saber rattling like crazy. Like the European bureaucrats, they can't wait to go to war with Russia. They've been wanting this ever since the Cold War ended. So I don't know. I don't know. Apparently, the meeting with Witkoff actually went pretty well, according to Trump at least. So this whole thing is very it's very fragile. It's very much a Fabergé egg of an agreement. Kiev officials, so this is the Ukraine side, said that the bans would only leave Ukraine vulnerable to yet another Russian invasion in the future. Which is, I mean, to be fair, that's also true. Like both sides have reasonable concerns here. They really do. Moscow has also called the U.S. and NATO to restrict its military operations from Eastern Europe to Central Asia and ban military exercises in the territories of new alliance members. With the Kremlin reiterating its same demand since its invasion of Ukraine began in February 2022, U.S. experts fear Putin has no plans to actively engage in the ceasefire talks. Yeah, because he's winning. There's no sign that the Russians are willing to make any concessions, said Angela Stent, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, who is a top intelligence analyst for Russia and Eurasia. The demands haven't changed at all. I think that they are not really interested in peace or a meaningful ceasefire, she added. Those fears were compounded following reports from European intelligence services alleging that Russia plans to drag out the Trump-led peace talks so that a peaceful resolution of the Ukraine crisis cannot happen before 2026. The report reviews documents written by an influential Moscow think tank with ties to Russia's Federal Security Service, outlining ways Russia could benefit from raising tensions with the US, China, and the EU to derail Trump's position to negotiate peace. As Witkoff engages with Putin and Moscow officials, it remains unclear what his approach will be when negotiating peace and resetting of U.S.-Russia relations. The Trump administration appears split on its approach to the former, with Witkoff touting the previous administration's 2022 peace talks in Istanbul as a guidepost to get a peace deal done. Trump's top Ukrainian and Russian envoy, retired General Keith Kellogg, however, said that the Istanbul agreement cannot serve as a starting point and that negotiators would have to develop something entirely new. So this is still very, very much in its infancy.
Yeah.
And again, I don't blame Putin for being very, very skeptical of any kind of a ceasefire agreement, especially because of this is the spin version of it. Zelensky calls Kursk operation a success as last troops leave Russian territory. Mission accomplished. What does that remind you of? I heard,
what, 2002?
I think it was 2002 when Bush was famously on that aircraft carrier and declared mission accomplished, when it's like clearly the mission wasn't accomplished.
Yeah, the hard part just started at that mark.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like the Ukrainian perspective, I guess, which is honestly kind of cope sounding to me. So Zelensky said on Friday that he called his military operation in Kursk Oblast a success as the last remnants of Kiev's forces leave the Russian territory they have occupied since August. So that small incursion that they made into Russia since last year, Russia took back is what happened. Which, as I said before, there goes any kind of land trading agreement that Zelensky can use to his advantage. Like, he just lost that advantage too. So this is very much a spin perspective, I feel like. Ukraine shocked the world with its bold offensive operation of the summer that at its height took control of an area about the size of Los Angeles and Kursk, Russia. The idea was to distract Russian forces from advancing on the strategically important city of Pokrovsk in southeastern Ukraine, a goal Zelensky said was achieved. I believe the mission is accomplished, he said. I think that the situation in the Pokrovsk region direction is now stable, and it will be very difficult to find an opportunity to occupy Pokrovsk again. So he's seeing it as like the incursion was very much like a distractionary tactic. Let's get them focused, on Kursk, so that Pokrovsk doesn't get fucked with. Essentially, that's the strategy here. But I'm skeptical because, I mean, if it was last August, that means that they've only occupied it for what, 8 months? But a long time. Ukraine's Kursk operation aimed to lure troops away from Pokrovsk in the direction of more Ukraine-secure areas in Kharkiv and Sumy. Before Ukraine's Kursk operation in Sumy particularly had seen little conflict or military purpose since Ukraine forced Russia out of the region during the war. The first pressure fell on the Kharkiv direction. Russians pulled as many of their troops as possible from there to Kursk. Then they began to withdraw from the eastern direction, but did not abandon their main task, Pokrovsk. Still, Ukraine stayed in Kursk to continue its operation for 7 months. Okay, so not even 8 months. There had been some hope that Zelensky could trade the Russian region in potential peace negotiations. Yep, see, there it is. There's the land deal gone. With Moscow, but Russian dictator Vladimir Putin showed no interest in making a trade. Why would he? We are just strong people who understood that at some point there is a chance that the Russians will stop at the Pokrovsk direction, and that's how it turned out. The Pokrovsk direction, the situation is stabilized as well as in the Kharkiv direction. His declaration of his success comes as the majority of Ukraine's forces have finished their withdrawal from Kursk, which began March 5th, which we talked about last week. Zelensky is not confirmed whether all troops have left the region, but at least some remained as of Friday morning, according to Foundation for Defending Democracy's John Hardy. Some Ukrainian forces apparently remain at Dudza's western suburbs and in the Kiev area. But the total is far lower than the estimate of thousands that President Trump cited Friday morning on Truth Social. The president added that he strongly recommended Putin spare those troops' lives. Yeah, because they basically took like a precipitation withdrawal, where like a few people leave at a time to basically try to maintain as much of a defensive posture as possible. But all that's kind of doing is it's stretching the forces thin. And it's basically isolating individual parts of the forces into these little pockets in Russian territory, which is leaving them very vulnerable. It seems as if most Ukrainian forces withdrew or are finalizing their fighting withdrawal. Our team is not tracking significant Russian claims of Russian forces surrounding Ukrainian forces at scale, and certainly not by the thousands. So that's what's happening so far in the war front, is that the Kursk region has been retaken by Putin. I think it's clear now that Zelensky is realizing that the momentum isn't in his favor, and his forces are kind of like reaching a breaking point, I feel like. Which is why he was so like gung-ho about like ceasefire. Mineral deal. You know what I mean? Like he's very interested in the bullets to stop flying at this point, I feel like, because I think he's finally realized that he's losing this thing. So
yeah, right now would be a good time for him to take advantage of the cordial relationship that Putin and Trump have with each other to try and get this entire thing ended before it gets any worse.
Yeah, Mark Q actually makes a good point in chat. He says, I bet Zelensky's generals are fuming because Zelensky didn't sign the deal, that is the minerals deal, when they still had the Kursk region. Like, you have to remember, Mark Q, that they were starting the drawback from that region as that minerals deal was supposed to get signed. That they were already kind of like heading out, but I see what you're saying, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Considering that the guy who ran against Zelensky for the presidency and even won this last election was one of his generals. So one of his own generals is trying and succeeded in taking the presidency away from him. I fully agree with you, Mark Fu, that his generals probably hate him, if not all of them, at least a sizable chunk of them are very scorned by the actions and the decisions that he's made for the past couple of years.
I definitely think you're right, and we see that the polling, because it's like one of his main generals who's been the primary frontrunner against Zelensky, and he's been polling at well ahead. It's not really like marginal; it's significant. He has a significant polling lead over Zelensky if an election were held, and that flip happened basically I would say around September of last year. So not long after they actually made the original incursion into the Kursk region, did the polls flip against Zelensky. But yeah, that's the thing. Like if an election were held, Zelensky's done. So, which is probably yet another factor that he's come back saying, "Hey, we want that minerals deal. Hey, we want a ceasefire." Because Zelensky just sees the walls kind of closing in around him at this point. Like, he doesn't have a lot of options left. And he's very much because what he's doing is he's relying on the might of the United States to enforce a ceasefire over Russia, whether it be through any kind of sanctions or anything like that. Because he knows that he himself, it's like he was told in that Oval Office confrontation, he doesn't have the cards. And Zelensky is finally coming to terms with that, albeit too late probably. And so he's running back to the U.S. Hey, I'll sign the minerals deal. I'll sign the ceasefire deal. Whatever I need to get your force behind Ukraine to be able to enforce any kind of a ceasefire on Russia, because Ukraine sure as hell can't do it. And the EU sure as hell can't do it. So it has to be us, the United States, to do it. So I feel like that's kind of where things are right now. Here's the $1 million question right here, though. Right? Is, do you think that Vladimir is going to sign anything in regards to a ceasefire?
I want to say if he's willing to go ahead and create a brand new pipeline, or at least out to Europe to try and sweeten the deal, I have a feeling that he will be open to it. But it's all going to ride on that him getting exactly what he wants for that underlying issue. As long as he gets the underlying issue, he'll add a few other things on there to sweeten the deal and probably make Trump look good and make himself look extra nice for going along with it. But it's all going to be on what that underlying thing is. And I think that's getting Crimea, that whole chunk of Ukraine, back into Russia.
Right.
But that's just me guessing on what that underlying thing is going to be. And that's me looking into a crystal ball based on how things have been. That's exactly what he's going to be aiming for.
I think that the only way that Vladimir's going to sign anything is, I think it comes down to three things. Crimea is non-negotiable. The second one would be the presence of NATO in the country. And the third is the effort to what he refers to as denazification of Ukraine. So I think those are the three sticking points, essentially. Because those are the things that Vladimir actually... Because that's the thing, he went into Ukraine because it's hey, these are our people, and you have a government that's prejudiced against them, so we're gonna we're just gonna annex them and protect them. So it's I don't know. Apparently again, this Witkoff negotiation has been going well from what I've heard from Trump and stuff like that, but of course the White House is gonna try to positively spin any kind of ceasefire negotiation. So it's hard to say what the level of success is likely to happen. But That's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So Zelensky didn't really do himself any favors hanging out with the Azov Battalion. Oh God, I know, right? Do you remember that back when like the war first started? There were all like these PR photos and stuff like that of Zelensky and like even like female soldiers on the front line and stuff like that. And they were like taking a bunch of these photos with this battalion called the Azov Battalion, which was like one of the first battalions on the front lines of Ukraine. And then like it was realized as like, oh wait, this is these people are like actual bona fide Nazis with like actual like Nazi like regalia on their uniforms and shit like that. It's like
I remember that.
Yeah, that was kind of it made a lot of people that, especially like Americans who don't pay attention, that made a lot of eyebrows raised in America. Like, wait a minute, what are we supporting? Like, what's going on here? It's like,
yeah, it was that meme IRL. Like, are we the baddies? Well,
yeah.
If you're wearing the skull icon, man, that's a red flag, dude.
A little bit of a red flag, yeah. But that's exactly what like when Putin says denazification, that's what he's referring to. He's referring to like this hardline regime inside of Ukraine that's like explicitly like anti Russian in any kind of like they're heavily like prejudiced against Russians to the point where they'll like severely repress or even kill them. And they're just like, hey, if my people are going to be a part of your country, I want guarantees that my people are going to be safe under your country. And to do that, then that regime and people like the Azov Battalion, they have to go. Like, so I don't know like the all the details about the whole like presence of like bona fide actual Nazis in Ukraine. I know it is real. And I know that it is significant to a degree, but I don't know really much about it beyond that. So
the only thing I can say is that what did not help out their image at all was them ruthlessly killing surrendering troops with drones. When that footage got out, they lost so much PR for a lot of people.
Angel says that he talks about that, but he wants us to restore the pro-Russian regimes before the 3 revolutions against them. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, Jeff, yeah, over here in America, the term Nazi is like flung around like flippantly because it's like, the left is just, they're just retards. But over in Ukraine, like, it's like Marcus says, there's like people in the Azov Battalion are like literally wearing SS uniform kind of shit. Like, not the full-on, like, head-to-toe black uniforms, but I'm talking, like, armbands and stuff like that. Like, they, like, legitimate, like, actual legitimate Nazis.
They're doing it unironically.
Yeah, like, unironically, they're, like, the real deal. You know what I mean? Which is kind of hard to, like, imagine here in America. Like, wait a minute. Like, they're real? They're still around? It's like, yes. They actually are. In spirit, at least. So was the Wagner group? Oh yeah, was the Wagner group the one with that crazy story that happened like a few months into the war of that it's like a mercenary army inside of Russia that was fighting for Russia, but then they defected and started marching towards Moscow or something like that, and Putin had to like divert a bunch of his resources to stopping them, and they ended up going to Moscow only for the general to just surrender in like the most anticlimactic real world story ever. Is that what that is? The Wagner group? That was
I know. I think those were mercenaries. I don't think that was. I think that's just because they didn't get paid. I don't think it was for any like real political reasons. I think it was just because they wanted their money.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that's kind of what the American military around the world is being used as, is an underpaid mercenary army. And you see it too, like the way the Europeans talk about America, how they're just like, hey, America says, hey, pay your own, pay your own way, pay your dues, stuff like that. And then Europe is just like, you were never an ally, you were never a friend, you're just a bunch of traitors. It's just like, wait a minute, are you saying that like the friendship between Europe and America was based solely around America allowing our military to act as an underpaid mercenary force for Europe? If that was the condition of the friendship between the EU and America, that was never a friendship. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Okay. That's all I have for the current state of Ukraine. I'm sure we'll have more next week when Rosa returns. But yeah, it's just, we'll see. Right now, everything is hinging on whether or not, because I think Putin is basically going to. I think all we're going to happen by next week is we're going to have Putin's final terms, and whether or not Ukraine agrees to it and the U.S. agree to it. I think that's what we're going to have next week. But we'll find out. Who knows? There's a lot happening over there that happens a mile. A ton of stuff happens every hour. It seems it's hard to keep up with it.
Yeah, fair enough. I just hope it's over soon.
Yeah, it does need to stop, because at this point it has turned into just this meat grinder of a conflict. And in a meat grinder, Russia wins in a meat grinder. So, all right, let's switch gears over to the United States, and let's talk about the dismantling of the Department of Education. So, it was announced earlier this week that up the tunes of, I think it was like 1,300-ish employees of the Federal Department of Education were ordered to vacate their offices by 6 p.m. on Friday, I think it was, as they were firing everybody and shutting the building down. Now, that was quickly challenged in the court system, because of course it was, because apparently our system is set up so like any random fucking judge can just stop whatever they want to stop in the federal process. Like, it's kind of crazy to me how like any judge in America can just seemingly just like tell the president, nuh-uh, and then the president has to abide by that judge's rules. It's like, what? Like, this doesn't seem like a balance of power. But
was
anyway.
it a judge that jumped in there, or was it just a lawsuit that was put together and a judge has to oversee it first?
Well, it was this, but this is separate. This lawsuit is separate from a judge basically saying like, no, you can't. Basically, the judge basically just put a halt to it, the firing of the employees, because there's a specific process that has to be followed for firing, federal workers. And so what they're doing is, remember that thing what they did where they gave them like the cushion exit thing, where they offer them like a buyout. They say, hey, okay, here's our offer to get you to quit, essentially. Like, if you quit now, we'll give you like 6 months of pay and this and that and the other thing and blah 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 blah. And it's like a take it or leave it kind of scenario. That's what they've done now. So they're basically setting up to like do it correctly. Education Secretary Linda McMahon, which is it that McMahon? Hang on.
I don't think so.
I don't think it is. Wait. Oh my god, wait, it is. Linda McMahon.
She's really one of the WWE McMahons?
Is an American politician, business executive, and former professional wrestling promoter who has served as the 13th United States Secretary of Education. Yeah, a McMahon, along with her husband, Vince McMahon. It is that McMahon. This is Vince McMahon's wife. That is the
Whoa. Okay.
what a bizarre dude, like it. I'm sorry, but if America, if I'm an alien and I come down to Earth just to observe humanity, I'm going to conclude that America is basically like a reality television show. It's like Donald Trump is at the freaking WWE Hall of Fame. He knows Vince and Linda and has known them for decades. Now Vince obviously finally, his bad deeds have finally caught up to him. But what a weird, strange world when Vince McMahon's wife ends up as Trump's education secretary and head of the Department of Education. That is so strange. But anyway,
It's even more strange that because she holds that position, she is in line for the presidency.
I know, right? She actually is technically.
Yeah, so technically, if like everybody above her got wiped out, she could be wife of Vince McMahon, could become the first female president of the United States.
Talk about remember that show Designated Survivor? Which it stars Kiefer Sutherland. Where there's a rolling cadre of what are called designated survivors, which is they never allow the succession to the presidency. I mean, it goes deep, right? There's 30, 40, 50 levels of succession for the presidency. So if the president dies, then the vice president takes over. The vice president dies, then the Speaker of the House takes over. Down, right? And a designated survivor in that show, it's the agricultural secretary who's 23rd in the line. The only reason that he didn't die is because he was a designated survivor. And the idea is that they don't allow every single person in the successorship to be in the same building or the same place at the same time. That way, if a location is attacked, they don't get everybody in the succession. And in this case, in the premise of the show is that he, this lowly agricultural secretary, who's 23rd in line, is the designated survivor. The White House gets bombed, and everybody dies, and now he's the president. But yes, the education secretary is in that line somewhere. I don't know where, but it's there. It's just crazy to think about. But anyway, the Education Secretary Linda McMahon affirmed late on Tuesday that mass layoffs are the first step towards shuttering the Education Department, a longtime goal of President Trump since his time on the campaign trail. Quote unquote, actually it is because that was the president's mandate, McMahon told Fox News' Laura Ingraham on Tuesday. His directive to me, clearly, is to shut down the Department of Education, which we know we'll have to work with Congress, to get that accomplished. But what we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is bureaucratic bloat. That's not to say that a lot of the folks, it's a humanitarian thing to do. A lot of the folks that are there, they're out of a job. The department terminated almost half of its workforce, some 1,300 staffers, on Tuesday, and will now only have about 2,000, just shy of 2,200 employees, basically, left. Now, again, a judge has basically said you can't just fire them like that. They have to get their due. You're allowed to fire them, but you just have to do it the right way. You have to send them notice, and there has to be offboarding followed on that. That all that kind of stuff has to be followed. Overhaul of the workforce will not impact free application for federal student aid forms, student aid, operations for students with disabilities, civil rights investigations, and formula funding to states, a senior official said, adding that the cuts were focused on unnecessary or reductive teams. But we wanted to make sure that we kept all of the right people and the good people to make sure that the outward-facing programs, the grants, the appropriations that come from Congress, all of that are being met. And none of that's going to fall through the cracks, McMahon said Tuesday evening. The news of the workforce cuts came after the department told workers to leave their offices Tuesday by 6 p.m. and that the offices will be closed Wednesday because of security reasons. The administration's goal to completely eliminate the department cannot take place without Congress's approval, where a 60-vote backing would be required to sidestep the filibuster, which is why it probably won't happen. McMahon warned workers of the upcoming layoffs of the final mission memo she sent out after she was confirmed for the leadership position by the Senate. In it, she argued that removing red tape and bureaucratic barriers will empower parents to make the best educational choices for their children. McMahon also said Tuesday that the administration is not taking away education and that the moves will eventually lead to students scoring higher on tests. He's taken the bureaucracy out of education so that more money flows to the states. Better education is closest to the kids, with parents, with local superintendents, with local school boards. I think we'll see our scores go up with our students, and we can educate them with parental input as well. But the move will not go down without a fight. Education advocates are now preparing to defend the federal agency through litigation and civic action, while the president readies an expected executive order seeking its elimination. Last Friday, McMahon said in an interview with News Nation that the administration's plan to decimate the department is not just an instance of closing down the agency and walking away. This is not a turn off the lights and walk out of the department, McMahon said. It is a close consultation with Congress and looking at how the needs of students can be best serviced. Cabinet member also reaffirmed that even if the agency is shuttered, the administration wants to ensure funds are flowing to schools for research and other avenues to boost performance in the classroom. Well, we're looking at them all across the board and how they can be best handled if the Department of Education does not exist. Some of that funding comes by appropriations from Congress. That's in statute, and that money will continue to flow into the states. Pell Grants, student loans might best be served in another department, and we're looking at where that can best be handled. So, any comment before I say a couple things?
Do you have any idea if they were specifically trying to get rid of No Child Left Behind, or was that already destroyed at some time in the past couple of years?
Man, I'm not sure about that. That was Bush's. Bush's harebrained policy, right?
Yes, and it was one of the biggest pains in the ass that was given to educators, especially those who worked in the special education department, with the amount of bureaucracy and bloat and extra classes that teachers had to go to and everything else like that. And I think it was even credited towards the lack of retaining of knowledge and long-term skills that students kept after they moved from one year to the next. So I'm wondering if that hasn't already been removed, if there is anything specifically to get rid of that, because that, as far as I know, has been probably the worst policy that's been implemented in the past 20 years. And just getting rid of that first probably would have been a good place to start before doing something this drastic.
Okay, I just looked it up. It says that the No Child Left Behind Act, was in fact replaced. It wasn't repealed, but it was replaced by the Every Student Succeeds Act, which sounds exactly the same. Let's see. So the Every Student Succeeds Act is the ESSA or ESSA. The ESSA signed into law in 2015. So it looks like the No Child Left Behind was replaced by this ESSA thing in 2015. Reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the nation's national education law, and replaced the No Child Left Behind Act. One of the main things that it does is it shifts much of the decision-making power to states and school districts, allowing them to design their own accountability systems within certain guidelines. ESSA encourages states to focus on a broader range of factors beyond test scores, including chronic absenteeism and career readiness, and allows states to use nationally recognized tests like the SAT and ACT.
Okay, then all my personal knowledge on that is just outdated then.
Yeah, it sounds like because this is like the whole problem with like the whole idea of the Department of Education, is that the more local education is, the better the students will perform. Woke is just gay, race, communism. Unironically true, Jeff. I hope that Trump reinvigorates the manifest destiny in America. Well, I mean, with the whole talk that he's talking about, like Greenland and Canada, and Trump. That's the thing. Like, side note. Trump is like gung ho about basically bringing about the Monroe Doctrine again. And a lot of countries are terrified of that. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. No, I see where you're coming from, because like the No Child Left Behind Act was this like federal level top down policy that just like ruined so many school districts. And I think another manifestation of that, in a way, would be like the common the what is it, Common Core, the Common Core curriculum that Obama implemented, which is like the Department of Education's federal guidelines for like K through 12 schools curriculum in learning like math and stuff like that. Have you ever seen Common Core math?
I saw one clip and I almost wanted to punch my screen as soon as I saw it. It was so.
It's,
It was dumb.
It's like, it's so dumb, it's anger inducing. Like, it's like, to the point where like, why are you making my kids like this stupid when it comes to math? Like, it's such a horrible way to teach math. But that's like another example, like where this top-down nationwide mandate for the Department of Education, you know, just kind of like stifles student performance and stuff like that. But personally though, I actually think that let me see, like yes, the National Education Association, or the NEA, is a labor union with a federal charter. It's a federal level union. This is what I think is the main thing here. If you completely gut the Department of Education, even if you can't get rid of it, if you basically just like gut it down to nothing, then you basically lose all the teeth that the NEA has. Because if there's one thing that has had an absolutely ironclad grip that hurts students pretty much everywhere it goes, it's the fucking teachers union. And if you got the federal entity that keeps the teachers unions afloat, then the whole union system blows up. Suddenly, teachers are accountable again. That's a really, really big deal. And I actually think that's one of the key motivating things behind this whole effort, is to destroy the teachers' unions. Ah, man. Let's see here. So, obviously, immediate pushback happens. Trump sued by 20 states to halt the dismantling of the education department. A group of Democrat state attorneys general filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration Thursday over its moves to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education and its termination of nearly half the agency's staff. Attorneys general from 20 states and the District of Columbia filed a legal challenge in response to the administration's dismissal of more than 1,300 workers at the department. The layoffs are an effective dismantling of the department. See, that's the thing. It's like even the opposition knows that you don't have to completely get rid of the department to effectively dismantle it completely. And that's the thing. That's the workaround. Because if you want to get rid of the department entirely, you need 60 votes in Congress, which Trump does not have. And he probably won't even get it in the 2026 midterms. He's never going to have the vote necessary to dismantle it, to actually like get rid of it completely. But he can dismantle it effectively by gutting the workforce and essentially reducing the scope of what the department does and can do to basically nothing. The department's authority to administer reductions in force does not override Congress's exclusive authority to abolish executive agencies or to discontinue their functions. But that's the thing, though, is that he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't signed an executive order yet, to my knowledge, saying, you know, the Department of Education is being abolished. He's going after the workforce. And that has nothing to do with this exclusive authority of Congress to abolish executive agencies. As an agency authorized by Congress, the Education Department cannot be eliminated without congressional approval. Yeah, we know that. The defendants named in the lawsuit are President Trump, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, and the U.S. Department of Education. President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American public to return education authority to the states. Yes. It performs better if it's in the hands of the states. And the thing is that just because you lose a federal agency doesn't mean you lose federal funding. In fact, you'll actually probably end up seeing more money ending up into the pockets of local school districts on the, dispersed by the federal government, because the overhead of the department is suddenly reduced to like next to nothing. So all that money that would have been spent on overhead of the Department of Education can now get spent on actual students in various states.
Yeah, it's theoretically possible unless Trump wants to go in and take that extra money and try to balance the budget.
I don't think it's enough, but we'll see. We'll see. That's very much a possibility.
It was gonna do it all on its own, but it would definitely help a little bit.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like it would help a little bit, but like you get like 100 things that help a little bit. Suddenly, you've helped a lot.
Yeah.
What says? Let's see. The Education Department manages the country's more than $1.6 trillion student loan portfolio, provides funding for schools, and ensures civil rights. Well, the whole Title IX abuse to the trans rights in sports has basically rendered this statement moot. Funding for schools isn't going to go away, and the student loan portfolio could easily get folded into another agency. So, I guess the thing, it's like, just because it does these things doesn't mean that those things can't get done in other places. That removes a lot of bloat and bureaucratic red tape for the process. So, and I just wanted to get into it, like, as again, I don't think necessarily they're doing it because they want to defund the schools or, this or that. I think that they're going after the teachers' unions. I think that's a primary drive here. They get rid of the teachers' unions, suddenly local school districts have the ability to hold teachers in their districts accountable. And it also potentially allows, like, because teachers are always complaining about not being paid enough, stuff like that. If you get rid of the bureaucracy, then teacher salaries can actually increase, potentially. But there's a lot of cogs that go into this. But I just wanted to highlight this because I think that this is a big drive of it as well. How left-wing activism corrupted America's schools. By the way, City Journal is a fantastic source for education-related articles. Like if you look just on the sidebar over here, woke school accreditors must be stopped. Federal funding shouldn't be going to woke university programs. DEI corrupts education research. There's a lot of good stuff on City Journal about education. Let's see. On February 10th, the Trump administration, this was published back in February, slashed almost $900 million in U.S. Department of Education research contracts in an effort to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse. Education activists attacked the move, claiming that it would stifle important research. Everything's important to the people who are getting everything. Every dollar of research is important research to the person who's receiving the dollar. It would stifle important research. It's like, that is debatable. I trust me. I spent 8 years at university, 3.5 of which were in grad school, where I was around advisors and professors and grant systems quite a bit. And I'll tell you right now that there is a lot of bullshit studies getting funded. Hell, just look at all of the programs of the departments that ended studies. And, social studies, women's studies, fat studies, black studies, all these kinds of things. Like, half of their theses, they have like PhDs and master's degrees in these subjects, and you look at their theses, and it's like an ethnographic paper, which is basically like some dumb bitch writing their lived experience, and that's a master's thesis. Like, there's no research or anything. It's basically a diary of a mentally ill minority. and that passes for a master's thesis. That's it's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. Especially for somebody, because I got my master's degree in geology. Okay, like an actual field of science. And I was rigorously scrutinized on my master's thesis. So it says quality educational research certainly matters, but the Institution of Education Sciences, which administers the contracts, has abandoned this mission. The IES has abused what should be a nonpartisan mandate and pushed progressive political agendas through research and training programs. Consider the IES's Regional Education Laboratory Program. Created in 1965, RELs were charged with studying effective educational practices and disseminating the latest scientific knowledge to local school authorities. Despite this noble-sounding goal, critics have complained that the RELs promote fads, waste resources, and are prone to politicization. The DOE allocates nearly $60 million to run 10 RELs across the country. Each lab oversees a set of states. Within its designated region, each REL works with local schools and state education leaders. But this goes on for a bit. I scrolled through it. Let's see. Beyond their own progressive activism, RELs have contributed to the growth of a nonprofit bureaucracy that shares their left-wing priorities. The Department of Education enters into multi-year, multi-million-dollar contracts with public and private research consultancy organizations to manage the laboratories. These contracts provide managing organizations with valuable credibility and connections to state and local education authorities. Over time, these connections have led to lucrative opportunities beyond the scope of the REL program itself. Take research consultancy West Ed, which runs REL West and is supporting partner for several other RELs. With $260 million of revenue and more than 1,400 employees across 13 offices, the consultancy receives substantial public funding. Financial statements show that a third of the West Ed's revenue comes from federal sources and almost half from state and local sources. But they say that, the consultancy's products include a report promoting the replacement of standardized tests with controversial lottery admissions to ensure equitable access to competitive magnet high schools, and a teacher's guide on, quote, culturally responsive math education. West Ed even trained teachers on critical race English education. Participant learned, for instance, how they could lead lessons which examined the role of the white savior complex in Atticus Finch's character development in To Kill a Mockingbird. But you get the idea here.
I'm sorry, what? They were demonizing To Kill a Mockingbird?
Oh yeah, they think that Atticus Finch is like a bad white savior in Kill a Mockingbird. Which is insane.
Alright.
So Atticus Finch was the one person who is willing to stick his neck out for a minority. He is the least racist character of that entire story.
Oh yeah, there's an entire scene where he almost gets lynched.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he sticks his neck out literally to defend a minority because he actually believes that skin color shouldn't dictate guilt. And these organizations call Atticus Finch a white savior complex and a bad guy. It's like, these people are fucking insane racists. They're insane racists. So, but the whole point here is that, like, a lot of funding that trickles down from the Department of Education is essentially used as slush funds for these bullshit consultation companies and management systems and red tape bureaucracies, all the way down to local levels. And all the bureaucracy does is ensure that leftist progressive bullshit is just constantly drip fed into everyone's minds. And we shouldn't be funding it, especially taxpayer dollars. But I'm telling you right now, that City Journal, if you just go to City Journal and just do a search and then go like university or education, Department of Education, anything like that, it'll send you down a rabbit hole, because this journal is on top of education reform. But yeah, we'll see about the Department of Education. Again, I think that the goal is to target the teachers unions, and again, it's like McMahon said, re-empower local communities. The more you localize education, the better students perform. That's pretty much it. And it's like pre-Jimmy Carter, who signed the Department of Education into existence in the first place, I feel like our students were doing totally fine, if not significantly better than they are now. So, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, but it's like at a point you have to really start scratching your head and stretching some yarn and being like, you know what, maybe we should try getting rid of this thing and see if that helps. So,
Yeah,
we'll
and I fully agree with catering the local education towards the local environment because every community is different. I mean, if, for instance, if you're in a place where, like in Detroit, back when they were the steel and car factory of the world, it would be perfectly fine for every single class to have, for every single school to have mandatory car and auto shop because that's what the local jobs were. It'd be stupid to force somebody out in the middle of, I don't know, the swamps of Alabama to do the exact same thing when there's no job opportunities for that, for example.
No, you're not. Yeah, exactly. The one size fits all is like, when it comes to education, is like the worst kind of approach.
Yeah. And the only thing you really could do for one size fit all is to force everybody to go into college, which I think the millennial generation has proven that bottlenecking everybody into university is a really dumb idea.
That's a horrible idea. No, there needs, honestly, I feel like all the departments that ended studies, you know, fat studies, women's studies, black studies, etc., they should all be just gutted completely and removed, and they should be replaced with trades. Fat studies becomes electrician school. Black studies becomes carpentry school. You know, like you integrate the trades into the university system essentially. You could have, you know, or as a part of it, because like when I was in high school, we had shop class. You know what I mean? Where we learned how to use belt sanders and saws and shit. Like, I don't think they have that anymore because the saws are too dangerous. You know, like fucking hell, man. But it's like
they're definitely moved out by the time I got out of school. I was in this one class where it used to be the auto mechanics class because when you go inside, you could see the rafters where like all the machines would work for like chain stuff like that to lift up a vehicle so you could get underneath it. But all the actual equipment that hook up into the rafters and the side of the walls were completely gone.
Yeah. And you're entirely right too about the local thing because I think that's the thing. It's like everybody always says like, you know, like you can't just throw money at a problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's when it comes to education, money is not the only issue. There's so many issues that go into like the success of an educational program that are, and the vast majority of them are local. They are local demographics, whether it be through you know like what's the demographic of poor people and stuff like that, or you know all these different class dynamics and all these different aspects of an individual community that goes into the success rate of a school. You know, think of like inner city culture and how that has an effect on the success of the school. You think that, Gangbanger Jimmy, is gonna be more successful at school because the school spent $1,000 more a year on him? No, that's not a problem that's fixed by money. It's very much a local issue that has to be fixed locally. And there's all these different like local factors that go into the success of it that you can't deal with it on a federal level. It has to be localized. You have to give the people in the local communities the amount of control that they need to be able to allocate and set policy to bring success to their school systems. And that will require no longer being beholden to the teachers' unions. And you have to remember, it was the teachers' unions that kept the kids out of school during COVID, and made basically turned like a whole generation of kids into retards. So that was the teachers' union that did that, you know. So it's like it's shit like that that has to go away. So that the local you basically so you can unleash the uh the power of the local people to make their education systems great again. Um, so okay. Any last comments on this topic?
Nothing.
Okay. I am going to that up there. Okay. Next topic. Okay, there is a massacre in Syria that some of you may have heard of.
Yep. Oh, this article brought back some bad memories.
Yeah, this was very much like a kind of like a macabre "I told you so" kind of situation. So the history of this is that there's a lot of contention about Bashar al-Assad's, let's say, relationship between the Islamist community and the Christian community. And he actually had a decent relationship with the Christians in Syria that the insurgents did not have. So what happened is when Bashar al-Assad was ousted by the insurgency, the Islamic insurgency, they now just, when was this? March 13th, so 2 days ago, they massacred a bunch of, they're called Alawites, which are Shias. So they massacred like 1,300 Alawite Shias. And the Alawite Shias are the group that Bashar al-Assad himself belonged to. So basically, it was a mass revenge killing, is what this was.
Because they weren't able to take the revenge directly on the president for the things that he did against the Sunnis, because I guess he had some bad blood with that particular sect of Islam in the past. They just took it out on, air quotes, his people.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. It was very much a revenge event. So, this is all fluff at the beginning. Let's see. So, Islamists killed more than 1,300 people, according to the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Most of the victims were civilians from the Alawite community, the minority Shia sect to which former President Bashar al-Assad belongs. Clashes between government forces and an armed remnant of Assad's regime in the provinces of Latakia and Tartus last week led to sectarian violence as Sunni militia descended on the region. Alawites, who held prominent positions under Assad's rule, have a history of living side by side with Christians. This is where all the fear is coming in now. Because Assad and the Alawites were like this friendly bulwark between the murderous Islamists and Christians. And now that barrier is gone, and the Christians are terrified of getting genocided, which they should be.
Now all the friendly Muslims are gone. It's just them.
Exactly. Now it's just the Christians and the extremist terrorist Muslims, essentially. It freaked us out. Hawaii said we couldn't sleep. It was a very painful few days. Hawaii's confirmed the deaths of 10 Christians through his channels in Syria, but he doesn't believe the government forces and rogue militia are intentionally targeting the Christian community. And that's the other fear now, is that before they were just militants. Now it's the government itself. They see us as infidels, as people who don't believe in what they believe in. At the same time, they don't see us as people who persecuted them in the past. Still, Syrian Christians are worried, wondering if the new government will target them next. I mean, they're next on the list. Revenge killings mark the worst violence of the December ouster of Assad. Ahmed al-Sarraj, also known as al-Golani, led the Sunni movement to overthrow Assad and now serves as Syria's interim president. Many Syrians welcomed the end of Assad's 24-year grip on power. His Ba'ath party ruled for more than 5 decades and was guilty of numerous atrocities against Syrians. Yet Sarraj's former ties to al-Qaeda have raised concerns that Syrians may have exchanged one violent regime for another. This was the whole contention of Tulsi Gabbard's nomination, by the way, because Tulsi Gabbard back in like 2017 or something like that had that infamous like meeting with Assad, and basically like kind of started the narrative that like Assad's bad, but the thing that will replace him is worse, essentially. Like Assad's this really awful person, but the thing that's threatening his regime will be even worse. And she's got a lot of shit for that, including all the way up to like her confirmation hearings. That was like the main point that Democrats were like hammering her on, was like her meeting with Assad and stuff like that. So this has been like a long time concern. Let's see. Christians and other minorities, including Alawites, Kurds, and Druze, could face increasing threats, said Nina Shea, director of the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute. There are no restraints for the protection of religious minorities, said Shea, who served on the U.S. Commission of International Religious Freedom 7 times. It's open season on them. The killings may not be done on orders, but I'd be surprised if the government protects Christians or anyone else. According to Shea, Shara has a tenuous hold on power and directs a coalition of radicals that includes hardened jihadist figures from Chechnya, Uzbekistan, and other countries. He believes Syria's interim president is a radical Islamist who projects a moderate image to the West to secure sanctions relief and aid. The United States condemns the radical Islamist terrorists, including foreign jihadis that murdered people in Western Syria in recent days. Marco Rubio said, man, Marco Rubio's got a lot of shit to deal with these days, doesn't he? He's dealing with this now. He's dealing with the Zelensky-Putin situation. Like, he's got a lot of serious shit on his plate, man. I don't envy the man. Shara's office has said it would create an independent committee to investigate the killings by both sides. No one will be above the law, and all those whose hands are stained with Syrian blood will face justice fairly and without delay. Shara said. Elias questions widely circulated social media posts describing a Christian slaughter, which, to be fair, he should be. It wasn't Christians who were slaughtered. It was members of Assad's prior regime of Shias. But it's the Christians that are next, essentially. David says here, he's concerned about the future of Syria's Christian community since Islamists view Christians as low-hanging fruit. It's a house you can go to without any resistance because they know that Christians don't have arms. They are not clustered in one place like the Alawites where they can resist for a long time. So they're isolated and unarmed. They're basically sitting ducks, what he's saying. That's so prevalent in Christian communities that churches typically hide their icons during the week and display them on Sundays only. Some icons are more than 400 years old and very valuable. Shea said that the Syrian Christian population has dwindled significantly in the past few decades and now numbers around 300,000. While no surveys have been conducted, Away said Catholic and Greek Orthodox estimates are more optimistic and range from 600,000 to 1 million. Many Christians are choosing to stay in Syria and maintain a low profile, according to Christians with connections to the country. At the same time, some reports suggest that thousands of Syrians are crossing the border into Lebanon. That's where I'd go. Yeah, those who stay face threats on multiple fronts. Who gets in here to talk
I'd have them build. Yeah, I'd have them build too, man. I've been in a country where, Christians and Muslims were inside the same area. Mm-hmm. The only reason why the blood feuds back and forth stopped was because the president massacred his own people and told them to knock it off. And that set a big enough of a message for everybody to knock off the killings. But unless this president, whenever the first killings against Christians pop off, unless he does the exact same thing, it's just going to snowball and snowball and snowball until they're all gone. And based on him having these ties with Al-Qaeda, I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't trust him to take that stance if his own people, air quotes, start going after the Christians, especially with how much he's allowed them to get away with the Alawites.
The only thing that's keeping him in check a little bit is how he presents himself as a moderate to secure aid from basically NATO countries. But again, he can easily be two-faced here. You know what I mean? It's set up above how he basically has this group of hardened drivers. It's basically he has like an army of black shirts that they don't need his command for them to do their thing against Christians. You know what I mean? So it'd be really easy for him to like Mont and Bailey himself, and basically have the plausible deniability towards any kind of actions that extremists take against Christians. I think he has a potential out here, and if I were a Christian, I'd be going to Lebanon as soon as I could. And here's the thing: 300,000. It's like, where have we heard this story before? How many times have we heard the same story about Muslims in taking over Christian countries, and then suddenly there's no Christians? Happens every time, it seems. So I don't know. Not a good situation. Not a good situation. The buffer is gone, and the Christians are like legitimately at risk of actual genocide at this point. Now, I did say that they're like spread out. They don't like cluster like the Alawites did. So it had to be like more of like a guerrilla operation. But honestly, that just means it'd be easier to hide it. So fascinating that the presence of a brutal dictator kept the body count down. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, yeah, it really is interesting. Assad was like a great example of this, like, damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. Like, it's very much like it is like a perfect example of like the choice between the lesser of two evils. Assad was definitely like that choice. Now, we didn't know it at the time. It was speculated that he was going to be the better of the two choices. Now we're like seeing it, yeah, he was definitely the better of two choices, which is saying a lot considering how awful he was. So, let's start with the Turkish invasion of Byzantium, the early Arab conquest of North Africa and the Levant. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like every time you see Muslims take over a Christian country, the Christians just kind of disappear. If the Dems want to bring in refugees from the Middle East, why not bring in these Syrian Christians? They already share similar beliefs. They should be able to assimilate with Western American values. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, they share religious beliefs, for sure. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. It's like that Christians that are fleeing Syria at this point have absolute legitimate claim of asylum if they were to flee. 100%. But I am of the camp where, like, if you're in a certain part of the world, you should seek refuge in that part of the world as much as you can. Which is why I think that somebody flee to Lebanon. Because Lebanon has, it's a neighbor that are actually like friendly and protective to the Christians, and like Jordan. Jordan is another one. Jordan would be safe for the Christians as well. So, but if like Trump came out and said like I'm signing an executive order that like Syrians like fleeing Syrian Christians fleeing the country after this massacre are going to be like legitimate asylum claims, and we'll take priority or that anything like that, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense, because the Christians in Syria are at like real actual serious risk of genocide here, kind of like all like the white South Africans after recent elections and ramp up of kill the Boer kind of talk down there, same kind of thing. Like these are like these are people who are like actually at risk of actual genocide. So, man. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. The rest of them are going to be smaller stories. There's a lot of heavy stories tonight. A lot of like global political stories. Let's talk about climate hypocrisy.
This one.
Oh my god, this one had me just shaking my head. It's one of those, of course, massive stretch of the Amazon rainforest destroyed for upcoming COP30 climate summit's 4-lane highway. Why can't they just do this over a Discord call? What? This is a loss. Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I mean, it really is, though. It actually is, like, an actual loss. Like, why do they have to... I'm sorry, but, like, can't they just have this little summit at a hotel? Like, why do they have... Why do they have to build a 4-lane highway for this? Like, what? What's the reason for this highway?
I mean, I did a little more research on this, and it actually gets it's actually a lot worse than what you think. So I'll let you run through, and I'll tell you what I found out on it.
Okay, somebody get Greta on the horn. I love the little lead-in lines that New York Post writes in their articles. Tens of thousands of acres of protected Amazon rainforest are being cleared and paved over. So it's not even like slash and burn the trees. It's like literally like this forest is never coming back because we're paving over it with asphalt. To build a new 4-lane highway for, of all things, the upcoming COP30 climate summit in Brazil. You know what this also reminds me of? It reminds me of how they destroy the environment and community whenever they build a new soccer stadium for the World Cup. Reminds me of that.
Yeah, but it's always done so fast and halfway done that it falls apart within only a couple of months or even a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes like this overgrown, you know, like post-apocalyptic looking building. And it just ruins like the local economy and all this other kind of shit. It's like, it's awful. Like everywhere that the World Cup goes, it isn't already like an established like major city. Like they're coming to LA next time, but it's like LA already has the infrastructure to support that, no problem, you know. The 8-mile stretch of new highway dubbed Avenida Libertad, or Avenue of Liberty, the pretentiousness of this name, has gouged a deep gash through a large swath of Amazon rainforest just in time for the world leaders to convene to discuss how much they care about the Amazon rainforest. Photos published by the BBC show the bare corridors where heavy machinery ripped through the lush, unspoiled landscape now littered with log piles, the sounds of insect chirps and bird songs replaced by a chorus of rumbling diesel engines and the whine of hydraulic excavators gutting the forest floor. That is a beautiful sentence. Who wrote this? Chris Nessie. That's a beautiful sentence you have written there, Chris Nessie. More than 50,000 people are expected for the 30th annual UN Climate Summit in Belém in November, including a number of world leaders. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva boasted that this year's event will be a COP in the Amazon, not a COP about the Amazon. By the way, da Silva is a straight-up socialist, communist. They replaced, I think he's the guy who Bolsonaro originally replaced this guy. Then Bolsonaro went a little too far with his authoritarianism, got prosecuted, and then da Silva came back again. So that's Brazil politics. It's either like communism or like a psycho right-wing guy. The state
choices, right?
Yeah, choices. Yeah. The state government of Para initially hatched the idea for the thoroughfare in 2012, but it was repeatedly put on hold after concerns were raised over its environmental impact. The state government has repeatedly insisted the highway is sustainable, but that rings hollow to locals and conservationists who are condemning the project. Everything was destroyed, said Claudia Verdequet, who lives about a quarter mile from the roadway in progress and used to make a living harvesting acai berries from trees near his land which are no longer standing. Our harvest has already been cut down. We no longer have that income to support our family, he told the outlet, noting he has not received any compensation from the government and is keeping his finances afloat by dipping into savings. Even worse, Verdequet said he's afraid now that the once unspoiled rainforest has been marred. Future incursions further into the land could be imminent. Our fear is that one day someone will come here and say, here's some money, we need this area to build a gas station or to build a warehouse, and then we'll have to leave. We were born and raised here in the community. Where are we going to go? So did they own the land that the acai berries were on?
Yeah, it sounds like this farmer was originally owned it, then the government just came in and said, hey, we need to take this from you. and they haven't gone around to paying them back yet.
Wow. It's not even like untouched rainforest. It's actually like rainforest that people like are making their livings on.
Yeah, it was a dude's farm, essentially. They took over a dude's farm.
The highway will effectively bifurcate a large section of rainforest, raising concerns among scientists about the effects on wildlife in the area. Yeah, like wildlife crossing roads is like a big deal. From the moment of deforestation, there is a loss. Professor Silva Sardinha, a wildlife vet and University Animal Hospital researcher, told the outlet. We are going to lose an area to release these animals back into the wild, the natural environment of these species. Land animals will no longer be able to cross to the other side, too, reducing the areas where they can live and breed. But Adler Silveria, Pata's infrastructure secretary, told BBC that the project was not only sustainable, but an important mobility intervention. A mobility intervention. What a fucking bureaucratic word. He claimed would include eco-friendly amenities like wildlife crossings, bike lanes, and solar panels. I mean, to be fair, wildlife crossings are like normal to be like integrated into highway systems. That is a thing. Like they'll elevate the road and essentially create like a big tunnel under the highway that will allow like animals to cross underneath the highway. That's I see that those are normally normal, but still, it's just it's hilarious to me, like the hypocrisy of it all. Oh man.
Yeah, and actually, the part of the story isn't as bad as you think. But what was left unsaid is so much worse that it makes the entire thing much more worse than what you're thinking right now.
Go for it.
So I did a little more digging into this, and it looks like that whole line about, they're taking out tens of thousands of acres to make way for this road, that looks like it was just a BS rumor made by the BBC, because an actual 4-lane highway is only, a standard 4-lane highway is only 64 feet wide. And with the highway being 8 miles long, that equals only 62 acres. So the BBC was 9,900 acres from what they're telling everybody, which this guy got the information from this article. Now, once news of this rumor and news of this article actually made it to the officials in Brazil, they were completely taken back by for a couple of reasons. One, they had no idea where that 9,000 acres came from in the first place, and the official who's actually overseeing the road was extremely honest about it. He owned up exactly how much was being put into it, and it's actually 300 feet wide along the 8 miles, which is, so right there he's being much more honest than what he could have gone away with the 62 acres. Plus said, no, it's going to take more like 300 acres to go through this. So that right there shows that this thing is just a false flag made by whoever wants to make the distraction for this entire situation. And that's why that road isn't as bad as it sounds, because they are mitigating some of the issues with the whole wildlife thing. It is nowhere near the amount of land that is being taken up by this, or what was being originally reported. So that right there is showing that it's not as bad as what is being reported in the article or even through the BBC. Now, what isn't being reported makes the entire thing worse. This road isn't even on the docket for the repairs that they're making, or the upgrades they're making to the city for this summit. This was just a normal upgrade to the city that they were making to ease with congestion as the city plans to grow, because it's going from the center of the city towards the eastern part of it. That was just a normal upgrade that they were planning on eventually doing.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. That would make sense because, like, if they annex, like, a bunch of the land on either side of the road, like, yeah, they're not going to turn that land into road, but they are going to claim it for future development.
Right, and that's where the extra, like, 200 feet is coming from.
Right.
But the whole story behind the climate summit is even worse because, like I said, this isn't even a project that they have on the roster. They have 33 projects to upgrade the entire city. And it's stuff that's going to take up a lot more resources than just building this road. Everything from extending the bay, so that way more ships can come in case anybody wants to come through that way. Growing the malls, growing, again, just like big hotels and everything else like that. They're going to expand this city in ways that are going to make this 300 acres look like absolute child's play. And the amount of resources, the amount of carbon that's going to go into those upgrades far surpass just this one little itty bitty dinky road in comparison to what they have planned. And then that's not even the cherry on top of this entire situation. The real issue that this road has with what's going on, which was completely overlooked, even when they interviewed the conservationists, is that this road, by Brazil's own law, may actually be illegal to build, because according to Brazil's Atlantic Forest Law, the rainforest cannot be built over for any type of construction unless it's for mitigating circumstances. So, for instance, all that land that was chopped down and used for like agriculture and everything else like that, that was legal for mitigating circumstances because it was important for the country's food and for its stability and for everything else like that.
Okay.
This is just a road. That's not a mitigating circumstance. That's not an emergency thing.
It's a
so
convenience
because
thing.
they're taking out, yeah, it's just conveniencing. So because of that, this thing might actually be the federal officials breaking their own federal law.
Man, you think corruption
and that's
is bad,
real
like
controversy
in like our country, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing, Marku. He says, like, I wonder if the city project is going to be like the temporary stadiums that rot away.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if the upgrades that they have planning for their bay and for their shipyard is probably going to decay within a couple of years, just like that. Because I really don't see I can't even imagine a major increase in ship usage just for this one event that would justify it or even be sustainable.
Looking it up now. 12th largest city in Brazil. Municipality. So it's like the city and the surrounding area. 1.3 million population as of 2022. Belém. No, that's the actual city. Belém Metro is 2.25 million. So that's Belém and the surrounding area. See here. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it looks like a sizable city. But like, here's the thing, though. Like, here, this is the city here. This is Belém. I'm just looking at this. I'm just like, you're telling me that they couldn't just have the conference in one of these fucking hotels? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why does any kind of new shit have to be built for a fucking climate conference? I mean, it looks like there's plenty of infrastructure here to host a conference. So,
well, I do exactly what you said. Why not just do a Zoom call?
But yeah, why not
absolutely, especially since it's for climate change and everything else like that. Like, why waste all the money and travel? Nobody should be leaving their home country.
Yeah, you can have it in this building, whatever this is. Got the Roman pillars, you're good. Or the Greek columns. Like, the tower. I mean, a lot of these are like, they look like slum apartments, to be honest. Like, you zoom in here. No. These don't look like the greatest buildings. I mean, these are like egg carton living here. This one over here looks pretty nice, though. I don't know. These are all housing. Obviously, these aren't hotels and stuff like that. But I don't know. It looks like they could host it just fine as they are. Like, it seems ridiculous. And you're right. Like, they're gonna build this shit that is only going to be used by like an event like the COP30 or whatever. and then it's just gonna rot away because nobody's gonna use it like a fucking FIFA soccer stadium. Ridiculous. And you know that they're all gonna come in here and just like, you know, I'm gonna pay attention to this COP30. When is COP30? Hang on. When is COP?
I think it's November.
It's in November. Yeah, you're right.
I think so, yeah.
November 10th. November 10th. I can't wait to cover that. Because you have to remember, like, the big thing about the climate that, like, the UN was pushing, the WEF was pushing, or has been pushing, the WHO, all of the global homo organizations were all pushing the 2030 climate agenda, like the net zero 2030 agenda, right? We are now like halfway to 2030 from 2020, and there's like tons of people and organizations that have already abandoned that agenda because they've realized that it's impossible to achieve. So I wonder like what desperate bullshit they're going to come up with at the COP30 summit in November. You know, it'll be interesting to see what a load of nonsense they all come up with.
I'm definitely curious because it's weird that the BBC would make this massive of a lie to distract from all these other things that are going on around the conference.
I don't know. Like, this is definitely like the sensational version of the story, isn't it? Or the sensational aspect of it. It's this 8-mile long road. But if there's,
I wouldn't say sensational. I mean, they're off by 9,000 acres. That's just I wouldn't even call that a lie. I think calling it a massive lie would be an understatement for what this story is.
It's almost like a cover-up.
It looks a cover-up or a false flag are the adjectives I'm coming across.
Distraction. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, we'll see. It's been making the rounds, and it is interesting, like, how these people just can't help but be, like, massive hypocrites. It always seems like the people who push for the climate, like the 2030 climate shit, the ones who push for it most are the ones with the most environmental skeletons in their closet, it seems. But anyway. Okay, keeping on with nonsense going on with the globalists. A UN judge is guilty of forcing a woman to work as a slave. And of course, the UN judge is black. Which is just icing on the cake, you know? A black United Nations judge has been convicted of forcing a young woman to work as a slave. Prosecutors said Lydia Mugambe took advantage of her status over her victim by preventing her from holding down steady employment while forcing her to work as her maid and provide childcare for free. The 49-year-old, who is also a high court judge in Uganda, was found guilty of conspiring to facilitate the commission of a breach of UK immigration law, facilitating travel with a view to exploitation, forcing someone to work, and conspiracy to intimidate a witness. She would be sentenced at Oxford Crown Court on May 2nd. In footage released by Thames Valley Police, Mugambe appeared shocked when an officer said he was arresting her under the Modern Slavery Act. Imagine, I'm actually amazed by this, that a black person was arrested for slavery in the UK. This has to be like a very, very clear-cut case. Because if there was any contention that this wasn't true, they wouldn't have arrested her. I mean, this is the UK that we're talking about here. He then had a conversation with the officer in which he said, "I am a judge in my country. I even have immunity. I am not a criminal." So she claimed like what do you call it? Like diplomatic immunity. Yeah. Asked to reaffirm that she had immunity. Mugabe told the officer, "Yes, I have a diplomatic passport." Conversation ended with the defendant saying, "I came here as a student. I don't need anyone to work for me. I didn't come with her. She asked me because she has worked at my home before. She asked me." I have immunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the thing, though.
Go ahead.
If I absolutely believe you're right that they have just an overwhelming amount of evidence and it is a clear-cut case. Because here's a kicker: she did have diplomatic immunity, but if it got to this point, it means the diplomatic immunity was pulled back by her government. So her government looked at the evidence, said, "Yeah, we want nothing to do. UK, do what you will," and they let her at the will of the host country.
Wow, so the host country just threw her under the bus. That's how bad it was.
The Ugandan government, if she did have a diplomatic passport, she absolutely has diplomatic immunity. But if it got to this point, that's a clear-cut case that the Ugandan government took a look at it and said, "Nope, we're yanking that. Do your thing."
Wow. The Ugandans were like, "We want nothing to do with this woman. Do with her what you will." Damn.
Yep, exactly.
Gasps
That's the only way it could have gone to this point.
That's amazing. Gasps were heard from the public gathering as the verdicts were given and the court was cleared as the defendant appeared unwell. You think? Caroline Hawking Casey prosecuted unwell is such a nice way to put it. Carolyn Haughey KC prosecuting told jurors during the trial Lydia Mugambe has exploited and abused her alleged victim, taking advantage of her lack of understanding of her rights to properly paid employment and deceiving her as to the purpose of her coming to the UK. Chat, this is why I pay everybody that works with me on the streaming stuff, because I don't want to be accused of being a slave runner. Phoenix is not my slave, chat. I promise. I pay him. She alleged Mugabe, who was studying for a law PhD at the University of Oxford, had conspired with Ugandan Deputy High Commissioner John Leonard Mugerwa to arrange for the young woman to come to the UK. Prosecutors said the pair participated in a very dishonest trade-off, in which Mr. Mugerwa arranged for the Ugandan High Commission to sponsor the woman's entrance into the UK. In exchange, Mugambe would attempt to speak to a judge who was in charge of legal action. Mr. Mugerwa was named in, jurors heard. Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa. Legal action, Mr. Mugerwa. So Mugambe, the slaver here, she was conspiring with this Ugandan High Commission person. Wait, who was Mugerwa? Deputy High Commissioner. Deputy High Commissioner Mugerwa. So she conspired to get a slave from Uganda into UK. And she conspired with this Mugerwa guy. And Mugerwa did it because in exchange, Mugambe up in the UK would attempt to speak to a judge who was in charge of legal action Mugerwa was named in. So it was like an actual, I will give you this slave from Uganda if you can get me off of the charges that I'm named in the UK. That's what this deal is. Holy shit.
And that's probably why the Ugandan government especially wanted to wash their hands clean of it, because they didn't want to get involved in this legitimate human trafficking and conspiracy to obstruct justice across international lines.
Yeah, holy shit. She was also found guilty of conspiring to intimidate the woman to withdraw her support for the prosecution and had to have the charges against her dropped. Mugambe's trial heard she had the intention of obtaining someone to make her life easier and at the least possible cost to herself, i.e. free, 0. She denied forcing the young Ugandan woman to do household chores and said she always treated her with love, care, and patience. Yeah, that's how house N-words were treated too sometimes. The young woman Mugambe tricked into coming into the UK, who cannot be named for legal reasons, obviously, told the court previously she felt lonely and stuck after her working hours were limited. Yeah, because she was smuggled into the UK because of this Ugandan corrupt dude. According to her UN profile page, Mugambe was appointed to the body's judicial roster in May 2023, 3 months after police were called to her address in Oxfordshire. Thames Valley Police Commander for Oxfordshire Ben Clark. I don't know what these abbreviations mean. Ben Clark said Lydia Mugambe is an extremely qualified lawyer, a Ugandan High Court judge, and a UN Criminal Tribunal judge. Well, yeah, that just means that she should have known better. After the offenses had been reported to the police, Mugambe tried to evade justice by repeatedly claiming she had diplomatic immunity due to her status. Any immunity Mugambe may have enjoyed as a UN judge has been waived by the Office of the United Nations Secretary General. Man, that is hilarious. Oh, man. Oh, a villain says, Phoenix, cough twice if you need help. Don't let the pervert convince you to be his servant.
What do I need to do to convince everybody I'm fine and being held with my own will?
I don't know. Some of the edits you make in the shorts would speak otherwise or suggest otherwise.
I don't know. Considering some of those edits, I think that shows I'm pretty free to do what I want.
I mean, honest to God, chat, I do give him like pretty much all freedom to do what he wants with the shorts. I just give him timestamps. That's all I do, chat. Okay, and then we got, let's see, we got a few more, and then we got to talk about influencers run amok. So the ICC, that's the International Criminal Court, takes Philippines Duterte, he's the former president of the Philippines, into custody to face murder charges for drug war killings. So Duterte basically, I'm sure they'll mention it in the article. If you don't know, Duterte, he basically would have anyone who had drugs on them just killed and killed. Like, he wouldn't arrest them, or put them on trial, or put them in jail, or anything like that. He would just have them killed. And he killed a lot of people in the Philippines.
Yeah, the liberal estimates are all the way up to 30,000 people.
Yeah, which is that's a lot of fucking people. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte was taken into custody by the International Criminal Court on Wednesday following his arrest in Manila on murder charges linked to his war on drugs, in which thousands of purported dealers and users were killed. The ICC, yeah, see, like, he would literally have police just like pick up like someone like who was like suffering from an episode, like a drug-related episode, off the street, and just disappear them. The ICC said in a statement Duterte was surrendered to the custody of the International Criminal Court. He was arrested by the authorities of the Republic of the Philippines for charges of murder as a crime against humanity. The 79-year-old arrived at Rotterdam Airport on a chartered plane earlier on Wednesday. He will be brought before an ICC judge in The Hague in the coming days for an initial appearance, the statement said. He was transferred to a detention unit on the Dutch coast. Duterte, who led the Philippines from 2016 to 2022, will face allegations of crimes against humanity for overseeing death squads in his anti-drugs crackdown. He could become the first Asian former head of state to go on trial there. The ICC arrest warrant said that as president, Duterte created, funded, and armed the death squads that carried out murders of purported drug users and dealers. So, I heard stories about this because my former martial arts teacher was trained by native Filipinos, and who went back and forth between the Philippines, and like every time they would come back stateside with stories that he would then relay on to me. So like Duterte, this is what he's known for, is like the drug death squads. Speaking in a video shot during his arrest in Manila on Tuesday, Duterte asked, "What is the basis for my detention? What is the crime committed?" An official who read Duterte his rights told him that it was on the basis of a warrant from the ICC accusing him of murder, to which Duterte replied, "It must be murders." It's like, even he knew. Like, oh yeah, it must be the murders, right? That's got to be what it is. I mean, what else could it be?
Dude, it wasn't even a secret. I mean, this is what he ran, but when he was running to become president, he even said that if he wins, he will not stop killing drug dealers and drug abusers until the bays are overflowing with dead bodies. Like
Yeah.
this isn't a secret at all. Like people voted specifically for him to do exactly what he did.
Yeah, exactly. This was like a primary part of his platform.
Yeah.
About 20 anti-Duterte protesters gathered earlier outside the ICC in The Hague with banners including one that said, "We demand justice and accountability. Rodrigo Duterte is a war criminal." A protester held a big cardboard mask depicting Duterte as a vampire. This is great news for Filipino people. Anti-Duterte protester Minaro Alvarez said of Duterte's arrested and transferred to the court. "I'm here to show my appreciation to the ICC for doing its job to end impunity." Another protester, Mary Grace Labason, said, "Actually, he is lucky because he is experiencing the due process of law compared to the victims who were just being shot and killed without any due process." Yeah, exactly. He would just shoot and kill him on the street. A handful of pro-Duterte protesters also gathered at the court building. They handed our president to foreigners. They brought shame to our country. Back home, for families of Philippine drug war crimes, Duterte's arrests have revived hopes for justice. The war on drugs was a signature campaign platform that swept the mercurial Duterte to power in 2016. Yeah, like Phoenix just said, this was his platform. During his 6 years in office, 6,200 suspects were killed during anti-drug operations by the police's count. Activists say that the real toll was far greater, with many thousands more slum drug users, some of whom were on community watch lists after they signed up for the treatment, gunned down in mysterious circumstances. Lawyers and academics said that the arrest and transfer were a big moment for the ICC, which is targeted by U.S. sanctions and does not have any police of its own to arrest people. Yeah, the ICC, honestly, to me, is kind of a joke. Like, what self-respecting nation was surrendering its people to an unelected international court like this, you know? Which is why it's under U.S. sanctions. But the thing is that it was the Filipino authorities themselves that offered him up. No, it's not like the ICC sent enforcers into the Philippines to arrest and deport him to the Hague.
Specifically, it was just the president. And it looks like the reason why this was done was because the current president, had issues with the current vice president, who is Duterte's daughter. So in order to get back, because after Duterte was ready to step down, he helped the current president actually win his election and helped him win it by a landslide. But recently there was a fallout between President Marcos and Duterte's daughter, the VP, and he even tried getting her impeached. It looks like that failed, and it looks like to get back at her, since he couldn't get her removed from office, he's went after her father, and he's the reason why Duterte is now in prison. Because when it comes to prosecuting international criminals, the international community can actually go after heads of state if they have the ability to do so. For instance, Sudan, their leaders are bona fide war criminals, and if they step outside of the Islamic area or the Arabic community, they're immediately going to get arrested. So they had the opportunity to get him in Hong Kong. Chinese didn't care. The Hong Kong government didn't care. So he had to be sold out by his former, air quotes, friend in order to be sent to the Hague for this trial.
Wow. All because of a falling out with the current president and his daughter.
Yeah. Just because of that.
Ouch. Now it goes into here how it says other notable fugitives are Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is accused of being criminally responsible for acts including murder, persecution, and using starvation as a weapon of war in the Gaza conflict, and Russian President Vladimir Putin, accused of the war crime of illegally deporting hundreds of children to Ukraine. Both denied the allegations. In recent months, the ICC prosecutor has also requested arrest warrants for senior Afghan and Myanmar leaders. I would say good luck to all that. You're not going to get Putin. That's not happening. Netanyahu, I doubt it because the U.S. will prevent it. As for Afghanistan and Myanmar, maybe. I doubt it'll happen in Afghanistan because Afghanistan won't give their own people up. Especially with the new regime of just terrorists, basically.
Al-Qaeda,
yeah, of Al-Qaeda. Yeah, Al-Qaeda runs that country now. You think they're going to give their own people up? No. And then Myanmar, I don't know enough about Myanmar, except it was like a meme lefty protest movement from back when I was like in high school.
Burma, well, if you want to be respectful for the people, you'll call the country Burma. Myanmar is just what the president calls the country. So
it's like a Zimbabwe Rhodesia situation.
Sort of. The easiest way I can kind of sum it up is that the leader of Burma is kind of crazy, and he just has it's a military dictatorship. He just has way too much power.
Okay.
But so the leader of Burma has done multiple genocides, and that's why he's been an international criminal for a while. But because he runs a military dictatorship, like nobody's had the ability to actually go in there and get him because he has that entire country on lockdown and has way too many guns backing him up.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that Burma was like a military state.
Yeah, their leader is like one of the crazier things that he's done besides, pulling off multiple genocides is that he's big into numerology. So because of his superstition, he completely made the currency of the country in these weird denominational numbers, which completely tanked the economy.
So instead of like 10s, 20s, $100 bills, he had like 17 and 16 and $47.
Yeah, it's like 3,
bills.
7, 11, and like 22 or something like that.
What the?
It's weird. It's weird.
That's one of those stranger than fiction kind of things.
Yeah, and then of course he went and named the entire country from Burma to Myanmar. Like if you ever go there and you'll be like, oh yeah, I really like Myanmar, or I really like the Myanmar people, they'll be like, no, it's Burma, we're Burmese. If you talk to anybody who's an elected official, they'll say don't call us that.
Okay. Interesting. Good to know. The former president's daughter, Sarah Duterte, the country's vice president, boarded a morning flight to Amsterdam, her office said, but it did not say what she intended to do there or how long she planned to stay in the Netherlands. Silvestre Bello, a former labor minister and one of the former president's lawyers, said a legal team would meet to assess options and seek clarity on whether Duterte would be taken and whether they would be granted access to. Duterte's youngest daughter, Veronica, plans to file a habeas corpus request with the Philippines Supreme Court to compel the government to bring him back, Salvador Panelo, his former chief legal counsel, said. The arrest marks a stunning change of fortunes for the influential Duterte family, which forged a formidable alliance with Marcos to help him win a 2022 election by a huge margin. But Marcos and his vice president have since had a bitter fallout. This is what you were just talking about. Culminating in Sarah Duterte's impeachment last month by a lower house led by loyalists of Marcos. This arrest means that international justice is not just a Western construct, it's not just a Western idea, it's universal. The Gilbert Andres, lawyer representing families of victims of drug-related killings. That's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And, I mean, he's probably going to get convicted. I mean, not probably, he is. Almost guaranteed. Like, they wouldn't have gone through all this if they weren't...
Well, if they try him up for war crimes, then it's not going to go through because it wasn't a war crime. That's something completely different. But if they go after him just as basic human rights, they're probably going to nail him.
Yeah, it's crimes against humanity specifically.
Yeah.
So...
I was bringing it up because, one, I'm not sure what this protester's problem was saying Duarte is a war criminal. I mean, that along with only 20 protesters showing up, that shows that the people who actually are bent about what Duarte did, as shown by his polls and the re-election of the guy who he named as his successor, shows that the majority of Filipinos don't care at all. They didn't care and they still don't.
Yeah. Okay.
And like this guy right here who had that sign that shows that he doesn't even care enough to put like the real thing that he's been written up for on his picket sign. So this really feels like it was just Marcos's small collection of lackeys who were behind this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. The Shivingen prison, where he's being housed right now. Okay. Anyway, it's just interesting because like you never hear about the International Criminal Court because it doesn't really have any teeth, you know. So it's interesting to see it actually like have teeth. But anyway, okay.
Yeah.
We are almost 3 hours in, and I don't want us to go on too long here. So I'm gonna skip the next couple of stories and get into the influencer shit. First up, U.S. influencer faces visa probe after taking baby Australian wombat from its mother in viral video. I don't expect she will return. So, the U.S. influencer who sparked outrage when she ripped a wild baby wombat away from its distressed mother from her social media video is having her visa reviewed by the Australian government. Australia's Minister for Immigration, Tony Burke, said that the department is reviewing the video of Samantha Jones, also known as that, on Instagram, to see if her stunt violated the country's wildlife laws. The department is now working through the conditions on her current visa and determining whether immigration law has been breached. Burke said in a statement on Thursday. I think if I reload this real quick, be able to get, I think it'll show. No. Okay, never mind. It's not showing it. This is her. Burke said that the level of scrutiny Jones has faced over the video may be enough to keep her from returning to the land down under. Either way, given the level of scrutiny that will happen if she ever applies for a visa again, I'll be surprised if she even bothers, the upset immigration minister said. Oh, here it is. This is like a screen grab of it. I can't wait for Australia to see the back of this individual. I don't expect she will return. In the now deleted video that she posted to her more than 92,000 followers on Instagram, Jones snatched up the baby wombat on the side of the road in the middle of the night while the man filming her is heard laughing. As she runs toward the camera carrying the defenseless wombat, whose legs are dangling freely, its mother pops into view to chase after its baby. Look at the mother is chasing after her, the man says while laughing hysterically. The video then cuts to her holding the baby wombat as it screams in fear. Okay, Mama is right there, and she is pissed. Let's let him go, she said before the video ends. Jones wrote in the video's caption that the baby and mom are safely united. Foreign Minister Penny Wong also called out the hunting influencer for her cruel video. It looked pretty dreadful, didn't it? I will leave those sorts of questions about whether the influencer should be deported to Tony Burke and to the authorities, but really, leave the wombat alone. I think everyone who would have seen that would have thought, leave the baby wombat alone, leave it with its mom. An online petition calling for her deportation from Australia has received more than 13,000 signatures as of Thursday. It's unclear if Jones has fled the country following the backlash from the video. However, though the influencer may have believed it was a harmless stunt for her video, the Australian Wildlife Rescue Agency wires that the act is illegal. Wildlife vet Dr. Tanya Bishops told the news outlet that the baby wombat looked about 8 months old and at an age where it would rely on its mother for protection at all times. You can see the Joey swinging, but it's also hissing and crying out, which is a sign of extreme distress. You can also see the extreme distress the mother is in, chasing her across the road. Penalties for animal cruelty offenses vary by state in Australia. Some fines reach as high as $14,000 for individuals and $157,000 for corporations. Offenses can also carry with them a potential 7-year prison sentence. The Montana-based influencer has since turned her public Instagram and TikTok accounts private following the backlash. Jones, who claims to be a wildlife biologist and environmental scientist, did address the backlash in the Instagram comments before deleting the video. For everyone that's worried and unhappy, the baby was carefully held for 1 minute in total and then released back to mom. They wandered back off into the bush together completely unharmed. Wrote, I didn't think I would be able to catch it in the first place and took an opportunity to appreciate a really incredible animal up close. I don't ever capture wildlife that would be harmed by my doing so. Go to the zoo then.
Yeah. Unless I was specifically trained on how to handle a wild animal, I wouldn't mess around with it.
Yeah, it's pretty brave to do this, honestly, because these aren't small creatures. I mean, look at this thing. This is the baby. You know.
And wombats can be pretty aggressive. I mean, you're not really in too much danger unless you follow them into your hole, but even then, she got pretty lucky. Those things have some massive claws on them.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like even like the baby. Like this is the baby. This thing has got claws, man. But it's just like who when you're driving, like if you see like a family of animals, you just film the animals. Like, you know, like who like stops their car, gets out of the car, and then chases it down to try to get an animal away from its mother just so you can film it for a minute? Like what? If you want to film it so much, go to the zoo and film it there. Like, and you have no idea like what kind of what if there's any diseases this thing is carrying. You don't know. It's just such a stupid thing to do in all ways. Every day I might
Here's
just
the
like
$1,000,000 question I have: is wombats are marsupials? Was this baby just hanging outside or just walking by its mom, or did she reach into the mom's pouch and yank it out?
it was outside the pouch.
It was outside the pouch. Okay.
Yeah, it was just like with her mom, because it even said like she basically had to she had to catch it. So yeah, just have you seen the Chinese tourists in Yellowstone Park? I have not, but I can already imagine. Honestly, chasing after bear and her cubs to get a picture. Oh my
Oh
god!
no!
Oh my god! It is true though. Like, do they have bears in China? I don't think they do. They don't have like grizzlies.
No, I think the most they have is like panda bears and sun bears. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't get the big deadly bears over there. It's kind of like when I went to Australia, I went to a zoo there, and you could always tell like who were like foreigners from outside Australia and who were locals, because all the foreigners were like amazed by the kangaroos, right? So all the foreigners were huddled around kangaroos, while all the locals were huddled around the deer. They don't have deer in Australia. So they're like blown away by deer in Australia. Whereas like here in America, we're like, deer, they're pests. And all the Australians are looking at Americans going like, kangaroos, they're pests. Which they are.
Yeah, it's kind of like how you can tell when somebody's not from New England when they're amazed by a squirrel crossing the street.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I'll
my
admit,
god, a squirrel! Like, okay,
dude, when I first moved to Colorado from Las Vegas, and I started seeing like squirrels like wrestling and playing in my yard every morning and stuff like that, I thought it was the coolest damn thing. You know what I mean? Because like you don't get squirrels in fucking Las Vegas. And now I moved to Florida, and I see like lizards everywhere, and they crawl in the windows and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, cool. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, oh man. Okay.
Yeah, I understand that feeling. I think I had that moment the first time I saw a bat when I was an actor. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. Okay, so things will continue to escalate as we talk about influencer shenanigans. The next one being tourist in critical condition after leaning out of train and falling while doing a social media stunt in Sri Lanka. So she wasn't an influencer, to be fair, but she did it for the sake of social media. She FAFO'd for social media, but she did. So a tourist is in critical condition after leaning out of a moving train to pose for pictures in Sri Lanka, the latest casualty of a dangerous social media trend. The tourist, a 35-year-old woman from China, hit her head on a tunnel wall and fell off. How she's alive is amazing, honestly. hit her head on a tunnel wall, and fell off the train, suffering several injuries to her head and legs. The incident happened on Sunday when the unidentified woman was traveling from Nanuya to Badula, the capital of Uva province in the central hills of the country. She was rushed to Haputale Regional Hospital before being transferred to 2 other hospitals for treatment and special care. Grim pictures showing the woman being rushed away on a stretcher were shared on the Chinese social media site Weibo. But this is the tunnel. Like, you hit your head. This is solid rock. Like, you hit your head on this. I'm amazed that she survived. I really am.
How slow is the train going?
That's exactly what I want to know. The Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka urged tourists to stay away from train doors and do not lean out of trains for photos. Other tourists have been seriously injured or even killed, leaning precariously out of moving trains in Sri Lanka, trying to get the perfect picture for social media. In February, a 53-year-old Russian woman was reportedly killed after falling from a moving train while leaning out and posing for a photo. In December, another female Chinese tourist was reportedly knocked out of a moving train after hanging her upper body out and hitting a tree, but suffered only minor injuries. It doesn't say how fast this train was going, though. That's the ultimate thing, huh? Like, if it was only going, like, I don't know, 10, 15 miles an hour, then I don't know. It's hard to say how fast that train would have to be going to just kill her. Gotta have a thick skin in order to live in adulthood in a commie country. To adulthood? Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm really curious about... Does it say...
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it's anything over 15.
Yeah, me too.
Like, anything even over 10, anything over 10, I'd still be shocked.
It probably slows down to go through the tunnel as well. Yeah, there's not a lot of details about the nature of the train, like what route it was on or what tunnel or anything like that. I'm curious to know. I'd look into it, but you're right. I highly doubt she was going anything over 15. Oh, she'd have been dead on the spot. Speaking of dead on the speaking of dead on the spot, we have the final escalation. Woman stabbed to death on Tokyo street while live streaming. Now, to be fair, this isn't an influencer doing shenanigans and FAFO'ing. This is an actual victim. Shortly before 10 a.m. on the morning of March 11th, a 22-year-old woman was walking along a street in downtown Tokyo when a man suddenly came up beside her and attacked her with a knife. The attack occurred in the Takada Nobaba neighborhood, south from Takada Nobaba Station, in the opposite direction of the district's busier main commercial restaurant district and approach of the campus of Waseda University. The quiet side street where the attack took place, not far from a cram school for middle and high school students in a Japanese language. What does it say? Kurako Jun. Station. Yes. It's hard to see. A witness says he saw blood coming from the woman's head as she lay collapsed on the ground. Which, if it's coming from her head, I mean, he didn't stab her in the head. You don't stab anybody in the head. That came from a head injury from her falling. With her assailant aiming his smartphone at her face after he seized his attack. So, this was clearly targeted. Someone planned to kill her, knew where she would be, did the deed, and then immediately started filming it after he stabbed her. So this is like a clear-cut case of first-degree murder, as far as I can tell. Which, I mean, this is Japan. This is a really safe society. So this is actually pretty damn shocking. When police arrived on the scene, the witness says the man raised his hand and identified himself as the attacker. So he was immediately arrested on attempted murder charges, which have now been upgraded to murder, following the woman's death shortly after being rushed to the hospital. The victim has been identified as Airi Sato, a resident of the Tama district of western Tokyo. Not to be confused with the 28-year-old actress model Airi Sato, who most recently appeared in TV drama Japan Sings People of Hope. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. We don't know who Irie Sato is. Sora News 24. The attacker, who is in his 40s, admitted to stabbing Sato, but denies intentionally murdering her, telling the police, "I loaned her money, but she didn't pay me back. I wasn't trying to kill her." Bruh. What? With there being no doubt.
I do not try to kill somebody.
Yeah, like
After
what?
stabbing him 30 times.
Like, this is not a convincing story, dude. Right, exactly. With there being no doubt that the man killed Sato, investigators are now looking into the specifics of the man's motive and his mental suitability to be held criminally responsible. In addition to recovering a knife at the scene of the attack, officers also seized a second knife in the man's backpack. What a case! The first one was worn out from all the stab wounds? Like, what? According to reports, Sato was live streaming at the time of the attack, which may have been a factor in the man being able to get close enough to her to strike, making the tragedy a grim reminder that while Tokyo is by many metrics a very safe city, it's always important to be aware of your surroundings. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and she also broke a rule of operational security. Never ever post in advance what your schedule is going to be, because it looks like that she actually made a post where her general area was going to be for that live stream the night prior. This guy had plenty of time to plan out his route and how to intercept her wherever she might be along this train route. Like,
yeah,
every single time I.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, you're saying, man?
No.
Oh yeah. No, so like, for instance, whenever I travel around, like, I don't tell anybody where I'm going unless they're on my emergency contact list, so they know where to find me in case I don't show up within 24 hours. And then only after 24 hours, after I've taken my pictures or done my videos, and I've completely left that city, then I'll upload to social media. Sometimes, depending upon the situation, I won't upload pictures or videos or anything like that until a solid week or even 2 weeks after I've already taken them. So that way, nobody can track down my general location or estimate where I might be next after that point.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, I've been telling people that I'm going to Japan, but they don't know, like, what city I'm going to be in.
Yeah, they don't even know what general region you're going to be in, let alone the actual city.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you just alluded to, how the live streamer killed on the Tokyo street had her location tracked by attacker through a stream. Let's see. That the attack took place shortly before 10 a.m., but as late as just 2 hours before the Takano wasn't even in Tokyo. Takano was a resident of the town of Oyama in Tochigi Prefecture, from where it's about a 2-hour train ride to Takanobaba. Sato wasn't a resident of the Takanobaba neighborhood either, as she lives in Tama, a part of Tokyo much farther west of the city center. However, Takano knew that Sato would be in downtown Tokyo that morning because she'd posted online that she was planning to live stream from around the Yamanote Loop train line, which includes Takanobaba Station, on Thursday morning. So yeah, this is exactly what you just alluded to, how he knew where she was going to be because she posted where she was going to be on social media beforehand.
Yeah.
So, still though, like they said like she owed him money that he loaned her, which, I mean, you don't stab somebody like that for over like loan money. Like what? I'm skeptical of this guy's motive, to be honest, and I'd be curious to see like what his motive ends up being, or what like the case against him ends up being, because like clearly like he planned it out. So it's like, you don't. First of all, if you're gonna stab somebody, if you're gonna plan to stab somebody, you're not planning to stab somebody to send them a warning. You know, your intention is to kill. Like, give me a break.
Mm-hmm.
But I just be, yeah. See, that's where I'm going with this too, Viking. Can't this be a parasocial thing? He thought she belonged to him and were cheating. That's the only angle I could think of when I think she owed me money. It's just like, what, did he like donate like a bunch of money to her, thinking that she would give him something in return, and she never did. So he feels like she owes him, and so he tracked her down and stabbed her. Who knows? I think that's a very plausible scenario, though. Very much like
that's where my intuition is going to.
That was exactly where mine went too. Like pretty girl live streaming in Japan. You know, I'm thinking this is a crazed stalker out for revenge or something. Maybe she admitted she had a boyfriend on stream and it was all over from there, you know? But there's some good stories on here. Man travels 100 kilometers in middle of the night in Japan to punch another dude in the throat. Yeah, there's some good stuff. This site is great for like, this site it covers every little niche thing about Japan. Great. Okay. It is 10 after. I got time for one more. So we have 3 more stories. We have Canada trade war, volcano in Alaska, and UFO whistleblowers. I will let you choose which one we cover before we get into clips of the week.
Oh, well, let's end on a funny note. And so I think the most funny one is going to be the Canada trade.
Okay. Easy. That's the one I wanted to talk about too, because it's easy, the funniest one. Canada has nuclear weapon in trade war. Ban Pornhub in the United States. Oh, Canada. Some Canucks are proposing the most drastic measure yet in the trade war with Uncle Sam, blocking U.S. access to Canadian-owned Pornhub. The idea is the brainchild of funny man Matthew Pazitsky, who posted a now viral Instagram video suggesting the X-rated offensive, calling it Canada's nuclear weapon. Pornhub is the most visited in the U.S. with more than 3 million views a month. If Canada could ban Pornhub in the States, we win the trade war. That's it. There is no trade war, the Toronto stand-up comedian told the Post. A petition has since been launched urging Canadian authorities to block Pornhub as a peaceful yet powerful response to the trade dispute. It's not yet risen to the occasion, generating a few dozen signatures so far. Aww. Not getting that traction, folks. It's Toronto's Mark Olimpo said Canadians expect that to change since his countrymen are fired up about the trade war. That's all anyone is talking about, Olimpo told the Post. New Yorkers, meanwhile, were aghast with the prospect of losing Pornhub, whose parent company is Montreal-based entertainment conglomerate ILO, which owns a dozen popular X-rated sites. If they take away my access to Pornhub, I'm moving out of the U.S., one concerned Manhattan user told the Post. Canadians wouldn't do that to us, would they? Another asked. I thought they were supposed to be nice. That's one of the biggest lies ever, is that Canadians are nice people. That's as much of a lie. That's as much of a lie as Philadelphia being called the city of brotherly love. Like, no. Canadians are assholes. It's a big move, continued the man, who warned the drastic measure might be premature. I like how they keep peppering all these innuendos in here. Since trade talks remain ongoing. Let's not be hasty, Canada. This whole thing is a joke, obviously, because, let's be real, Pornhub is by far and away not the best porn site out there. And not only that, but there's VPNs, and there's plenty of alternatives. Let's be real here. Like, and it's interesting to me, too, because I moved from Colorado to Florida, and Florida is one of the states that passed the age verification requirements for the internet. So, you know, going to porn sites requires AI-based age verification in Florida, and you can just put on a VPN, tell the computer that you're in New York, and voila, the age verification is gone. It's so easy to circumvent this shit. that I don't know. It's just funny to me. Like, but it's a very lighthearted kind of thing to go along with the trade war, because like what the thing with the trade war is like we keep like leapfrogging each other, like the U.S. and Canada. Like I think the latest is that like another another uptick in Canadian metals, was hit with another 25% tariff because they keep trading tariffs back and forth, and it's like kind of getting out of control. Not to mention the fact that Canada was originally planning to run to China as their primary customer instead of the United States. That China immediately turned around and slapped a 100% tariff on them. Just like, wasn't it the hub that got itself a trusted safety board? It is. It is. The only thing Philly has done in the recent 3 years is keep the Chiefs from three-peating. Yeah, here on that, villain. Philly is, dude, Philadelphia. Have you ever been to Philadelphia? It is a shithole of a city, dude.
I have not. The only time I've ever even seen Philadelphia on the news is after it gets wrecked in a riot whenever the Eagles win.
Well, that, and you see like shit there like whenever there's an election, because Pennsylvania is like a swing state.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've been there a couple times, like driven through it essentially, and it's like same thing with like Dallas. I drove through Dallas for the first time when I moved to Florida, and I was like, I am not impressed by this city at all. But yeah, like that's the thing about like the hub. Like the hub is like it's like this really mainstream porn site, But like the whole thing about the hub, it doesn't have full scenes. I'm revealing my hand a little bit here, chat, but bear with me. It doesn't have full scenes on there. Like there are other much better sites out there that have full scenes. Damn it. But all right. I thought we end the news segment with a lighthearted gag. I think that was a good choice. About banning Pornhub. Yeah. And with that, I think we can go ahead and move into clips of the week.
Perfect.
Why don't you bring a couple of yours up? I will do the same here. Like I said, you can just throw them in the DM, and I will just move it over into the browser, and we will watch the clips.
Okay. I think I'm going to start off with probably the most lighthearted one. I wasn't able to get the video for this, so it's just going to be a link over to Twitter. Is that going to be fine?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool.
I got to look at my bookmarks. I have a bookmark just for clips of the week. But we'll go with one of yours first, and we'll kind of alternate a couple times, basically. Not enough furry stuff in the hub for you? Dude, there's like no furry stuff in the hub. There's like no real animated stuff either, honestly. Like, there's not really. I mean, there is a little bit of hentai in the hub, but not really. It's the hub is a very mainstream vanilla porn site. It really is. Let me see here. I did that. Oh, this is definitely one I wanted to bring up. But I'll do one of yours first. Yeah, okay. Did you send one? Yes. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
This. What is this?
I think it was something your chat would appreciate. This is a Pipkin Pippa meme. Yeah, you know.
Oh my. So what they?
Yeah, so we took one of those robot dogs and just made a bunny mech.
That's awesome, actually. I love that. They call it the capitalist Faraday cage. Oh man, that's so good. That's hilarious. Mine are typically not VTuber related, actually.
I thought I'd start with something a little lighthearted.
That's great. No, I love it. I love it. I love the they went out of the way to add a Gatling gun to it. Does that what does it say out there? Does it say "fuck around" on there? I can't read what it says on the Gatling gun.
Unfortunately, I can't read
it. There's even like a little food bowl of the rabbit in there. That's great. Okay, let me get
probably why I stay in combat.
Okay, there was a world record recently set that was pretty amazing to watch, actually. That was this.
Come on, one time.
This is hard to believe that it's real. But like, look at the chat. The chat is going fucking insane.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Look at that. It's like perfect. No notes missed. Perfect streak. No overstrums. Like it was like a literal perfect run of Through the Fire and Flame by oh crap, what's the name of the band? Dragon Force at 2x speed. So this is a speed metal song that's already insanely fast, sped up by a multiplier of 2, and he perfected it in Guitar Hero. Which is like, if he has a girlfriend, she's very lucky. I know, right? This guy is amazing. This guy is
As if he had any time for her. Jeez.
Well, yeah. So this guy, he prepared like for more than a year, I think, to do this. Like, just practicing and practicing and practicing just to actually pull off this performance, essentially. Which is like, and here's the thing, like, it's one of those like mastery of the useless kind of scenarios. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this is a useless skill, but it's cool, and I guarantee you he made a ton of money from the chat on this. You know what I mean? Like, he probably made I think he had like something like 80,000 people watching this live at the same time, watching him attempt this run, essentially. And yeah, you can see the chat is going fucking nuts. You know, they're just like, go, do it, go, you know.
And also think about the money he's gonna make when he flips this and just puts it on his channel as the first VOD. Just add revenue alone, putting this on YouTube, people come back to watching it over and over again. This
is fantastic evergreen content right here. Holy shit. Like, people will always go back and watch this, you know, this video on a VOD, like, endlessly, forever. It's really good evergreen content. He'll make plenty of money from this. So, not an entirely useless skill, but yeah, pretty wild to watch. You got another one?
Yeah, the next one is actually pretty much the whole premise behind it is that it's kind of like the perspective of being in Dark Souls or an Elden Ring, except instead of being the main hero, you're actually one of the bosses.
Okay. Oh crap! I'm not seeing.
Ever wondered what a boss does while they're...
I copied the link. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Is this just like... Is there like an actual link to this, or...
No, it'd just be a video. Can you bring it directly from the DMs, or not going to be allowed?
I need links, if you have links. Because I need to be able to watch this in a browser.
Fair enough.
You're good,
you're
good.
Do for you.
Let me queue up one of my other ones while you're doing that. You're good. Let me see here. What's a WTF podcast without some airline news?
Oh God.
So, an American Airlines flight returns after attack on passengers who claim to be fleeing demons. The man beat the crew, swallowed a rosary as a spiritual weapon, and claimed to be escaping religious attacks on his way to Haiti.
This Savannah flight bound for Miami hit turbulence just moments after takeoff, and we're not talking about the skies.
Myself and my friend were talking, we're like, we could have to take this guy down.
Started violently shaking and screaming moments after takeoff. Rosenberg says the crew and passengers initially thought Augustin was having a seizure.
He started stomping his feet violently, like heavily, and screaming. It was kind of a chant. He was talking about devils and possession, and it was like, you have to kind of see it to believe it. Destroyed this other man's seat. Like, he kicked it and punched it and just buckled the seat completely over. He just charged the front doors of the plane, like swinging wildly.
That's when Rosenberg, his friend, and another man took Augustin down. Rosenberg says Augustin swallowed rosary beads while on the ground and was gripping onto his sister during the takedown.
She had a bun in her hair, and he grabbed a hold of her bun in her hair, and he grabbed hold of her pants and wouldn't let her go. So they tased him once, twice, 3 times. He still didn't let go. At that point, they had to cut the woman's hair to make him let go.
Rosenberg says Augustin was arrested while his sister sang what sounded like hymns.
They were possessed. That was a very, very, very disturbing scene. I've seen a lot of stuff in my life. That was probably the most disturbing thing I've ever seen.
This guy who just thought he was possessed by demons and stuff started just wailing on everything and everyone he could find on this plane.
And he swallowed a rosary.
Which is like, he just had a rosary on him, accessible. Like that's strange, you know? It's like, did he expect to get possessed? Because that's what rosaries are for. Rosaries are there to like repel demons. So it's like he was expecting the demon to possess him or something. It's so strange. Okay.
I'd like to see the follow-up when they do the psych report on that guy. Yeah, go ahead and put it in a reply to the Twitter thread for this episode that you put up. Right now it's just loading.
Let's see here. Reply to the notif for this stream.
Oh, over on Twitter, when you put the post for the podcast itself, and then you did reply to with a link to the YouTube channel, I did a reply to that.
Oh.
So you should be seeing the link to it directly on Twitter as soon as it's done actually uploading.
Oh, it needs to upload. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Let me know when it finishes uploading. Let me see if I have another one here. I already showed that one.
All right, there we go. It's ready.
Oh, I see it. Perfect.
Waiting for a player to come and...
Okay, cool. Let me go back. Yeah, can I do this? There we go.
What a boss.
Okay, so now what is this again?
Oh, this is an indie video game. It's essentially kind of in the same genre as Elden Ring or Dark Souls or anything like that, except you're not playing the hero. You're instead of taking the role as one of the bosses.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. No, 1 second. All right. That's interesting. My phone says it's low battery despite it being plugged in, but we'll get through it. Okay, let me hit play on this.
Ever wondered what a boss does while they're waiting for a player to come and fight them? Well, in this game, the roles are reversed. You are the boss. And you get to batter poor little adventurers over and over again as they come and try and defeat you. However, as you might do as the player in a game like Elden Ring, the guy coming to fight you gets stronger, has better weapons and equipment, and learns your moves. If he does beat you, of course you have a second phase because you're a boss. But eventually, he'll even beat that second phase. The game is called Dark Queen of Morthome, and you can download and pay whatever you want for it on PC now.
That's a fun idea.
Yeah.
So you just hang around in this one boss room, just like slaughtering heroes as they come to you.
Well, actually, it's the exact same hero. Like it's again, it's perspective from a Dark Souls boss, where the guy will remember in Dark Souls where you'll go up against a boss and you'll lose like 4, 5, 1,000 times in a row before you finally get that perfect run and finally beat the boss.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you're fighting. You're up against a player who just refuses to quit.
That sounds like it'd be fun for like a playthrough.
Price?
I gotta click through my links.
I definitely something there.
Okay, now this is gonna be my last one for the night. This was inspired by Subnautica. I saw this and I was like, I have to bring this in. So this is what happens when you fuck with a shark.
Oh god.
Fuck! So he's just like snorkeling or whatever, and he sees this, I don't know, what is that, like a 7-foot bull shark? Or just like a reef shark. And he just like, I'm gonna fuck with it. And so he pokes at it like a dick, and then the shark just grabs his whole fucking leg. It's on his leg. Like his foot is way down in this thing's gullet right now. Like he got way the fuck up there.
Did he swallow his foot first, or did he just bite him on
This is the thing. This is the thing about animals. Like, even like dangerous predators aren't typically dangerous unless one of two things are true. One is that you're like between a mom and her babies. Or two, you fuck with it. if you fuck with
Mhm.
animals, they tend to fuck with you back, and they usually win. Humans aren't really built very well for fighting animals.
Yeah, and that principle is especially true with predators, because predators generally are pretty cowardly because they're meant for speed, they're meant for quick attacks, they're not meant for prolonged fights with something. So unless
Right.
something is actually worth killing so they can eat it, they're just gonna check you out, see if you are actually showing signs of weakness, and then they're just gonna bounce right off if they don't think you're gonna be worth the effort.
Which is what this shark literally did. Because that shark, he chomped down on that leg, but then he let go and fucked off. No.
Yep.
Because he knows that human isn't food. Okay, this is gonna be the last one of the night. So
Yep, and this is for everybody in chat who has a little of the inner troll in them.
Okay, the world's most annoying gift box.
I'm convinced that this is now, without a doubt, officially the most annoying gift box in the world. This is the really annoying gift box version 3.0. If you're new here, I originally started off with some smaller designs, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. First we had 134 bolts, then we upped it to 296 bolts, and you all said that wasn't enough.
You have to unscrew every individual bolt.
Yep, every single one.
So now we have this monstrosity. Just like with the previous upgrade, this one uses all of the same bolts. All we've done is just add a few more layers. And like I mentioned, we originally started off with 134, then we bumped up to 296. For this one, we have added 370 more bolts, which brings us to a grand total of 666. I would say that is appropriate because if you give this thing to somebody, you are truly evil. If you're wanting to print this monstrosity yourself, I made it available to my Patreon.
Oh, it's a
and
3D
thanks
printer
supporters, but
compatible.
I've also uploaded it to all of the other places that you can find 3D models.
And this guy's program is open source, so you can, as long as you donate to his Patreon, you can download it and print it, even sell it if you want to, without any issues.
Wow. Yeah, these do look easily printable. So, well, that's just like if you just got nothing, if you got like a YouTube video on and you want your hands to be doing something while you're watching an hour-long video, you can just sit there and unscrew bolts, you know.
Yep. As you write your hate mail to the person who gave it to you in the first place, for your birthday, for Christmas, or anything else like that.
Can you imagine, like, getting to the center of this thing, and it's just like a picture of Lord Helmet saying "fooled you," fooled you, like there's nothing there.
That's the funniest thing, though, is that the box in the very center is really, really small, so it's only good for like money or gift cards or something really tiny like that.
Yeah, like a fortune cookie.
In there would be like a cell phone.
Yeah, it just says something that's like it's like a fortune cookie that says the real fun is the journey or something like that.
Oh god.
Or don't forget to enjoy the journey. There's like some fortune cookie, wisdom right there. All right, well, that's the show. So I have a feeling that what you're going to be up to next week is going to be very short since you are not a content creator.
Yeah, pretty much. It's going to be just the same deal. It's pretty much going to be the same deal as always.
You're basically helping me out, chat. That's his deal. Besides his day job, helping me. I appreciate everything.
What I'll be doing next week is not being a slave to helmsmen.
There you go. Well, you know what's something that's going to be fun, chat, is that we figured out a workflow for Phoenix to make shorts without needing any input from me, right? So we have like an initial idea for it, and I think we're gonna have it finalized before I leave, and that way, Phoenix is gonna be able to fully autonomously put out edited shorts for me while I'm gone. Besides the one that we're gonna kind of build up in the library that I'll trickle out myself. So he will have from what is going to be a clip to the jokes that get in to the upload, everything. It'll all be on him. So he's gonna have full control over my uploads for the month of April. So yeah, we got that going. He's gonna be babysitting the channel. He's going to be babysitting the non-live streaming stuff. Yes. I don't know if there's gonna be any kind of live stream babysitting. I'm gonna talk to some people in the collective to see if that could be arranged. If not, it's okay. Because honestly, like when I get back, it's gonna be kind of like a soft re-debut anyway. I'm gonna do one of my first streams back is gonna be like a big, my trip to Japan stream, right? That's gonna be like a big stream that I'm gonna do when I get back. But other than that, next week we're back to the normal schedule. The only special thing is tomorrow I'm gonna be over on Genie's channel once again, continuing my Yakuza playthrough. Because I will look for any excuse to play Yakuza. You know me, chat. I'm giving Rosa some weird stuff on her channel. That's okay. It's gonna be fun. And then we are watching the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Outworlds, and we're finishing up the trilogy tomorrow night as well. I will throw that event up before I go live tomorrow. So, we've had pictures and plenty of stories. Yes, that's what I'm planning. I'm going to Japan. Obviously, I want to unplug, but I do want to keep in mind to take plenty of pictures and videos and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to journal it a little bit just to, not forget things that happen. Because it's a long trip. You know what I mean? It's a long trip. And I want to make sure that I cover the stuff at the beginning of the trip. Because the stuff that happens near the end is going to be fresh in my mind. But the beginning of the trip is going to be, literally 2.5 weeks old. So I might not necessarily remember it very well. So I'm going to try to do some journaling as well. And, give you guys a nice, fun presentation about because it's like a round trip, chat. I'm going starting in one city, and then I'm going around the entire island, main island, back to the same city, over almost 2 weeks, and then I'm doing another mini vacation, that's bullet train based after that. That's 4 days long, so there's a lot. It's a big trip, chat. Lots of stuff to do. I want to show you as much as I can. It'll be a fun time. So, Boomer slideshow with help. Yeah, 100%. That's what I plan on doing. I totally want to make it like a slideshow. It'll be great.
Yeah, that'll
anyway,
be cool, man.
Other than that, yeah, just my usual Red Dead, Subnautica, and Yakuza, Pirate. Wait, it's Like a Dragon, Pirate, Yakuza in Hawaii. It's a mouthful. And yeah, that's it. All right. Anything to say before we head out?
Nothing for me, man. Just remember, chat, achieve progress through science and industry. Enjoy your night.
There you go. All right. I'll see you on the next one, chat. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. The watch is yours, as always. Take care.